Today, we're going to be talking about the mysteries of ancient Peru leading up to the Incas, which has certainly made up a very strong impression amongst academics and general public alike. From the civilization, Sechin Bajo, dating back to 3500 BCE, through to that of the Inca Empire, ending with the Spanish conquest in 1532. You have this long, rich history that is not always talked about. Those of ancient Peru were engaged in huge construction programs, often building extensive pyramids that dot the landscape. The Sican, for example, built 250 pyramids. The massive step temple platforms. Sometimes they used adobe bricks to build their civic and religious monuments. Other times they used massive stones, some weighing up to 360 tons, which is about the weight of 500 passenger cars, right? As in the case of the Sacsayhuamans. Meanwhile, the Nazca, who thrived between 200 BCE to 800 CE of Peru, are most famous for their drawings that cover the landscape for miles that can only be seen from above. The Incas and other Peruvians elongated their skulls through bindings in early childhood and were also able to conduct skull surgery by drilling holes into the patient's head with high survival rates. As for the Inca Empire, this was one of the most organized states in the world, with a complex religious system involving a beneficent sun god and a semi-divine king derived from him. Here, royal and noble mummies were revered and even held long after their deaths. And so this evening, we will explore ancient Peru. We will learn more about this fascinating culture that is tucked beneath the Andes mountain. Now, I want to say a few things. Now, this lecture is not designed to investigate the totality of the Peruvian civilizations for the last 5,500 years. For to claim that goal will be much the same as having a lecture on every aspect of the history of ancient Egypt and ancient Mesopotamia. This is simply inconceivable. What I do propose here is a general survey. So much like the topography of ancient Peru, I want to give you the general idea by seeing the mountain peaks, but not necessarily all the valleys in between. I'm hoping by this introduction that you may be enticed to explore this topic more on your own. So just kind of little additional thought here. Now, the Inca of Peru are most known of the Peruvian societies and the very last before the arrival of the Spaniards. The Inca originated from the Andean highlands of Peru, centered in 6 fertile valleys, but they were certainly not the first of the great Peruvian civilizations. They just happened to be the final one because they encountered the Spaniards. And so they were best recorded and best remembered as a result of that. While I do speak in past tense concerning the Inca civilization, we have to remember that the Inca themselves have gone nowhere, and aspects of their culture and even beliefs continue even into our time. We have to admire how advanced they were for that time, even to those arriving from Europe, from their perspective. They had a great network of roads and monumental architecture, right? But of course, the Inca were only one of a series of great builders over the centuries in Peru and the surrounding areas, the earliest of which is the Sechin Bajo, located, first image, 330 kilometers or 210 miles northwest of Lima, Peru, and dates around 3,500 BCE, at least according that we know from carbon dating. Um, of course, this makes this civilization the oldest occupied area or civilization in South America. A large, next image, the large mound dominates the site, measuring some 990 feet long by 820 feet wide by 145 feet tall. That was faced with granite blocks, some weighing over 2 tons. The mound appears to be some kind of monumental architecture or even a shortened pyramid, a circular plaza that is 46 feet in diameter that dates to around, you're seeing it here, 3,500 BCE. But there are also 4 or 5 plazas deeper down, which means the structure was rebuilt several times, perhaps every 100 to 300 years. This would make this civilization predate both the Mesopotamian and Egyptian civilizations when they reached at least some sort of apex. So this is kind of a big deal, right? So we do have this idea. Let's look at me for a little bit. We do have this idea of pyramids, right? We of course we see pyramids or pyramidal structures all around the world. These are raised artificial structures, right? They're often viewed as representing sacred mountains all around the world, and were often dedicated to the spirits that happen to be occupying the heavens above, right? So, what I find is interesting when we go into this, I think I'm sliding over here. There we go. So, what I find is interesting is that oftentimes we find these pyramidal structures around the world in flat areas. Not always, but oftentimes. And so I always want to think to myself, why? And it's the idea that yes, when they worship the sky gods above, they want to get closer to the canopy of heaven. And so mountains are a very convenient way to enter into this conversation. But what do you do when it's a flat plain? What you do is you create an artificial mountain. And so this will be the case of the ziggurat in Mesopotamia. This would also be the case of the pyramid in Egypt. But what about Peru? Peru is known to be quite mountainous. Well, it's interesting because it just so turns out, as you will see as we go through this lecture, these structures also happen to be built in flat areas. So there seems to be something to that. Next image. Nearby, the pyramid, archaeologists excavated a 6 foot tall, 2 meters tall adobe frieze containing the image of a man, which dates from a later period, around 1,600 BCE. This man is holding something in his hands, but there is dispute as to what. According to Peter R. Fuchs, a German archaeologist who worked at the site, the man is a human sacrifice who is standing with open arms, holding a ritual knife in one hand and a human head on the other. So the man is, yeah, is a human sacrifice, but he's also, in a sense, representing himself. Good. Okay. So let's go to the next image. One of the earliest and extensive civilizations of Peru is known as the Notre Chico or Corral, located along the north central coastal area with as many as 30 known major settlements. The Notre Chico civilization thrived from 3000 to 1800 BCE. What is interesting about this culture is that they appear to be very peaceful, with no signs of weapons being employed, no fortifications for defense, and, well, no mutilated bodies. This will contrast with some of the later civilizations in this area. The Caro Soup Valley was occupied between 2600 to 2000 BCE and was one of the earliest densely urban areas found in Peru. The site of Corral was the center of the civilization. Next image, having about 3,000 inhabitants and It is located about 14 miles inland from Asper. The city's plan and some of its components, including pyramidal structures and the residences of the elite, show clear signs of ceremonial functions and monumental architecture, including 6 large pyramidal structures. The layout of the city shows signs of it being planned, with districts set aside for different trades, for the wealthy, as well as for the poor. Next image. Now, while we do not know the political makeup of the designers of the city of Caral, the very fact that the urban area was so efficiently planned out reveals some kind of powerful central authority that was able to organize a large workforce. And because the majority of the structures serve some kind of religious purpose, those who were the rulers combined secular and sacred authority. In addition to in examining the differences in material wealth of those living here, we can decipher right from the outset a clear division of wealth. The haves and the have-nots were presented right from the very beginning. Next image. This 163-acre site was the administrative center for a complex civilization. The site of Caral and the cluster of 18 similarly dated sites located in the Supe Valley form what is now called the Caral-Supe civilization. They are important because together they represent the earliest known urban settlements in the Americas, predating the Olmecs, by the way, by a solid 1,000 years. Next image. The center of the Caral complex consists of a central public area with 6 large platform mounds arranged around a huge plaza. The largest of the mounds is 70 feet high and measures 450 by 500 feet at the base. Next image. All of these mounds were built within 1 or 2 building periods, which suggests, as I said before, a high level of planning generally associated with state level societies. The public architecture has stairs, it has rooms, it has courtyards, and 3 sunken plazas, which suggests a society-wide religion. Of the 18 other sites near Caral, 10 are more than 6 acres in size. All of them have similar public architecture. And so that's important. The largest, as we see here, is known as the Major Pyramid. It is 160 by 150 meters and 18 meters high. It is the largest of the 6 platform structures in the Caral city, all built of quarried stone river cobbles, carried and placed in reed bags. The outer walls were covered with a multitude of colored plaster. This great pyramid is strikingly large and is located in a dominant position within the urban plan of Caral. It is said that officials standing on the highest part of this pyramid could monitor not only the activities going on in the city, but also a large part of the capital area in the Middle Valley. So we see that there. So next image. So you can see here you have, of course, the central area. So let's go to this. Looks like it is a plaza. It is a gathering area. I like the fact that it does look like kind of a theater, but it is again used for ritual purposes. It is a sacred space. Some have connected it to the shape of the sun or the moon, and this is a great image from afar. Oh, I have one more there. I'm just really impressed by this site. Again, the civilization thrived between 3000 to 1800 BCE. Okay, so I want to talk about this. To erect their structures, they perfected what is known as the Shikra bag technique, by which, in general, armies of workers would gather very long and durable grass known as shikra. This is found in the highlands above the city. They would tie the grass strands into loosely meshed bags, and then they would fill the bags with boulders. After that, They packed the trenches behind each successive retaining wall of the step pyramid with these stone-filled bags, with bags acting as landfill. This really anchored and reinforced the structure at each step of the succession as they moved further up. And so the people of Corral were able to build pyramids up to 70 feet tall. It was the grasses that made these bags, which allowed archaeologists to accurately radiocarbon date the complex, because obviously radiocarbon 14 involves organic materials. So what we have here, the site was not only constructed from labor, there's archaeological evidence that reveals that, that the workforce during this construction were, well, how do I put this? Offered, actually, how do I put this? Those in charge offered those working to build these monolithic structures. They were given roast of fish and akara root. And so the remains of these feasts were integrated into the fabric of the mound. Also, of course, as you see here, you have flutes, right? So let's look at me a little bit, and then we'll go back to the flutes. So in this sense, I want to go into this. In this sense, the building of these structures were part and parcel of a worshipful and celebratorial process. Banquets of good food and drink, all positive activities, all of them, were woven ritualistically into these structures themselves. So what will happen is that as this volunteer labor force was working on these structures, every now and then they would stop. They were given a wonderful feast of good food and good drink, good alcohol, right? And the best meats. And then what happened is after that, they would then ritualistically weave in the remains of their feasts into the fabric of the pyramid itself, into the very bags that they were using to build this pyramid, or these pyramids in general, moving up further. So, in a sense, they were saying, let this positive feeling or energy of abundance become absorbed into this place. It is the acknowledgement of their abundance, and with it, their gratitude. While I'm sure there was a hope for perhaps a little bit more, perhaps some rain, right? Hence, this is a magical activity intended to attract fertility and abundance in general. So we do know that that they had these great meals, these great celebrations. It kind of reminds me of when the pyramids were made in Egypt. You had those who are the workers. This is during the Old Kingdom, were given the finest food, and we found in the garbage heaps of the best meat and the best kinds of foods there in their amongst their trash, so to speak. But this is, of course, connected to their gratitude that they have there. Okay, so also they played music. Let's go back to the flutes, shall we? So let's take a look at these flutes. They discovered 32 flutes, made of pelican and condor bones, which kind of reminds me of the Paleolithic old world fascination with bird bone flutes, if you're interested in the Paleolithic era. Several horns were made from llama, or flutes were made from other materials, for example, alpaca bones. And so these particular flutes were found between the pyramids within the large sunken amphitheater, with enough room for hundreds of people during community gatherings. We talked about that. The 32 flutes were made out of wing bones of pelicans, and they were actually tucked into the recesses of the main temple. They were played by blowing into the central hole and covering either the left or right hand holes. They've also found flutes that were made out of deer bones too. So we see that there is, in addition to fine food, in addition to fine drink, we are going to have music. And once again, this idea of, well, we're going to celebrate and put it within the context of this pyramid. Next image. We also have something pretty interesting here. Uh, what we have here is called a hunaka. A hunaka means standing stone. So this is an impressive monolith that is 2.5 meters in height. It's directly north of the Hunaka Pyramid. It is therefore considered to be related to astronomical and ceremonial aspects of life in Corral. Likewise, it is found across from the main staircase, as you can see, of the important pyramid of Hanukkah. Archaeologists believe that this monolith was used for astronomical and ceremonial purposes. The stone monolith of some 2 meters in height was uncovered and appeared to connect the adjacent Galleria and Hanukkah pyramids. It is said that the angle of the stone to the tops of the pyramids marks the location of the summer as well as the winter solstices by about 40 degrees. Next image. Okay, this is quite a treasure here. This is a quipu. What is a quipu? In short, a quipu is a record system that uses cores that contain numeric as well as other values encoded by knots in a base 10 positional system. A quipu can be simple, it can be elaborate, having only a few or up to 2,000 chords. They were often used as mnemonic devices to communicate and record numerical information. Certain colors represented non-numerical information, and it used a binary system that could record phonological as well as logographical data. The quipu found here at Corral that you're seeing is important for many reasons. First of all, this is additional evidence that Corral was likely a precursor of the Inca civilization, since the Incas also used the quipu. Secondly, the quipu, as a tradition, dates at least 2,000 years older than we recognize prior to this point. So we see that this tradition went back further than expected. Third, and most importantly, if quipu were indeed a form of written communication, they are amongst the earliest forms of writing in the world. In fact, only slightly younger than cuneiform of Mesopotamia, which was, of course, found at Uruk around 3,000 years BCE. The quipu, with its well-preserved brown cotton strings wound around thick sticks, it was found with a series of offerings, including mysterious fiber balls of different sizes that were wrapped in nets and pristine reed baskets. We are sure it corresponds to the period of Corral because it was found in a public building. Also, it was an offering place. It was found in an offering place on the stairway. And of course, furthermore, it is made out of organic materials, and it can be dated to that period of time as well. So, yeah, pretty exciting stuff. Next image. Now, evidence of drug use and possibly aphrodisiacs was found at Corral. One theory suggests that Calcoa may be found in evidence in this area as well. But what they also found was this aquite. Aquite, also known as anato, was used as an aphrodisiac. In fact, it's still a plant that is used today. It is found typically in the rainforest of Amazonia, but it was also in this area too. It is, next image, In flavor, it is slightly peppery with a hint of nutmeg. It's sweet, it's peppery. It is orange red in color, and so was also used for skin decoration, both then and well today. It is also, in fact, today it is used for food coloring, especially used in dairy products like spreads and cheeses and so forth. And so we could see evidence of it being used as early on as the civilization. Next image. So what do the gods look like? Well, we don't know much. We are uncertain what exactly they look like, other than this drawing that's etched into a face of a gourd that dates between 2280 to 2180 BCE. Here it depicts a sharp-toothed, hat-wearing figure who holds a long stick or rod in each hand. The image looks like an early version of the staff god, which is a fanged, staff-wielding deity who is one of the main characters in the Andean pantheon. But we are still unsure. Next image. Now, here we go. I want to talk about this. This, to me, is supremely interesting. Let's talk about the Katash religious tradition. The Katash religious tradition started around 3000 BCE. It continued. The cutoff date would be around 1200 BCE, but precedents of this were sometimes we see earlier, and we also see that it goes into later contexts as well. So here it is. A Katash is a ritual building that was established in mountain drainages of the Andes. It was often situated in locations that would become direct centers of the following Chavan culture, and many scholars suggest a link between the two. One of the most common images of these sacred enclosures was that of the crossed arms. Let's look at the next image. So this right here, of course, is a nice layout of what it looks like. Next image. Oh, okay. Next image. This is still images of it. Oh, okay. Well, we may not have the crossed arms. Next image. Next image. And next image. Maybe it just didn't send. Oh, it did. It just came later. Okay, that's fine. The crossed hands at the Kaddish sites present a mystery. Most scholars view them as representing the duality of the Peruvian cosmos, as well as a union of these forces. They are viewed in the locality of the Katash as a meeting point, perhaps an energetic convergence place. But what are these forces? Some suggest it represents male and female, others life and death, or even heaven and earth. Because they are ritual spaces, the crossed hands may be connected to a ritual or even a representation of the priesthood. One final school of thought suggests they represent actual limbs being sacrificed. So we have a great diversity of possibilities. A second reason was to act as a sweat house for ritual healing. Let's go to the next image, but I think it's a few images earlier. Yeah, so we'll take that one down. You saw an image earlier on. What it did show was somebody sitting before a flame. So it could be used also for that. But I actually want to talk a little bit more about these ritual spaces. Not yet referring to the sweat lodges that sometimes they're turned into. There was a practice that was done at these sites known as temple entombment. Temple entombment. And so what the concept here is that the Katash was to be ritually buried after it was used. So following an important ritual and sacrifice, whatever intention was intended for the occasion that had been conducted, it had to be ritually sealed. It should not be open for possible desecration by either individuals or animals, and it shouldn't be open to any kind of destruction by the elements. So what they did is they fill, after doing the ritual in this building, they filled in the site with soil and rocks mixed with offerings. It was done very neatly, very cleanly, and then disappeared. So it was a special offering that was done just for that occasion. So that's called the temple entombment, because it had used itself up. There is an only correlation I can think of. There's a few correlations, but I always think about Shintoism, and I always think about Shinto shrines. And if you're familiar with Shintoism, you have these shrines that are connected to this energy, this musabi energy, right? But after a certain amount of years, what will happen is that these temples are kind of used up. And so what they will do is they'll tear down this temple and they'll build it up again. Uh, well, think about that and then kind of correlate it with this. In this case, it's kind of like a hope, maybe a once only. I don't know, maybe a few times, but whatever job is completed, then it is buried. But talk about synergy. In some cases, what they will do is they will use it for something else, and that is for you either ritually. This is funny. You'll either ritually bury it so it won't be used again, or you will use it as a special location for a sweat house for ritual healing. So they will then build into this a hearth that will be established into the middle of this building. It was meant to then accommodate a small group of people. We have discovered remnants of this secondary usage of these places, right down to the ventilation system. So it can be used for different kinds of things. But initially, it was applied for the reason of a ritual. Next image. The Sechin culture. Oh, yeah, the previous one. The Sechin culture thrived in northern Peru and lasted from 2000 to 800 BCE, with its center at Cerro Sechin, located near the Sechin Bajo. Sacsayhuaman was constantly inhabited during the second millennia and covered, next image now, roughly 50,000 meters squared, and consists of quadrangle, three-tiered step platforms flanked on each side of two smaller buildings. Got hair in my mouth, sorry. The platform was constructed in several stages using conical adobes or large sun-dried bricks with broad circular bases and tapered points, which were then set into clay mortar and plastered over to form wall surfaces. The retaining wall, next image, roughly 4.15 meters. There it is. Tall. It contained nearly 400 granite sculptures that were added relatively late in the site's history and encircle the perimeter of the building. This is pretty interesting. Next image. These stone sculptures, what I did, it was originally in color, this picture, but the problem is there's lots of pictures. It's hard to see it really well because the sun is always reflecting off of it. So I decided to turn it black and white and really heighten so you can kind of see these images a little better. These stone sculptures are most likely the most popular reason why people go here, right? And it shows a procession of armed men, probably important personages or warriors, making their way amongst the mutilated remains of human victims. Some have asserted that they represent priest warriors. Given the gruesome nature of the stone frieze, it seems likely that some degree of warfare or violence or some kind of raiding expedition was being depicted here. The gruesome relief shows dismembered heads and limbs, eyes skewered, and bits of intestines, vertebrae, and viscera. Some of the upright figures are obviously gods, while others are men. Let's go to the next image. But what is it? Right? Is this a battle scene? Or is it intended to show some kind of human sacrifice to the gods? What is its purpose? Now, of course, the jury is out on this one. There's many interpretations, and interpretations go either way. There's another additional theory that is out right now, and it's kind of right out of the Assyrian playbook, that the scene represents a civil war and the bloody consequences to the losing side, hence being depicted here upon such an enormous frieze, acting as a warning to anyone who would contemplate such a rebellion again. Next image. The local king was then making a monumental warning in stone. Next image. So you could see the interior of the adobe building also, actually go back one. The interior of the adobe building shows two mythological fish, although it's kind of hard to see here. Scenes related to the sea and rain are seen on this side of the interior of the adobe building, as well as scenes of a human sacrifice. Okay. Next image. This kind of looks like a almost like the Simpsons kind of cartoon, right? Next image. Yeah, there we go. There's a good close up there. Okay, next image. Okay, and so we see again this iconography of the, in this case, I mean, it's crossed arms, but yeah, and so it could represent, even in this culture, it could represent the dualistic nature of the universe, or it could simply represent two severed arms. And so it's hard to know. We have lost the context for this. Next image. Now, this one, I put this next one intentionally. In my mind, it almost looks like to me two severed arms. What do you think? And so perhaps this connects to the Katash, and perhaps not. But I don't know. I mean, it looks to me, I think I see the bones sticking out there, or is that just my imagination? But you can also see the aquatic aspects next to it, to the right. Next image. I want you to get the idea of the scale. Again, you have the aquatic scene to the left. These are quite large, very impressive, and I'm glad they're being preserved the way they are today. But again, they're very difficult to photograph. Next image. So we go to the Chavan culture. The Chavan culture of Peru thrived around 1000 BCE to about 200 BCE, and it originated from the northern Andean highlands, and then extended its influence to other civilizations located along the coastal region. They domesticated camelids, for example, the llamas. So thank you, Chavans, for that. Too bad it didn't stop them from learning how to spit. So the llamas were being used both as pack animals and for food, especially jerky meat, which was used for trade with nearby people. So, so trading beef jerky is part of the trade. Their food staples were the potato and quinoa. Excuse me. And of course, the potato at this time is being cultivated. Remember, potatoes come from South Africa, right? I mean, it was South America. Excuse me with that. I'm hiccuping, so I probably need to drink some water. Let me get a second here. I didn't realize how hot the lights would be getting this close to me. For those who are just coming in, I decided this time to have a new seating position. It's okay, but I'm trying to get used to it. But I'm under closer than usual hot lights, and it's making me thirsty and hiccup all at the same time. So I apologize ahead of time that I'm hiccuping a little bit here. Okay, so like the Notar Chico civilization, the Chavan culture appears to be peaceful, unlike the one we just talked about, right? With no defensive walls and no warriors represented in art. In fact, wherever the Chavan influence is found in art and architecture, at least in the outlying areas, these people also appear to also be peaceful, with only those beyond that seem to be warlike. Next image. But they are also known to have spirits of jaguars is very popular, eagles, and the spirits of felines as well. Next image in their art. And of course, we do also have massive stone carved heads of fanged jaguars that often project from the tops of interior walls. The art was intentionally complicated and filled with obscure symbolism, intended to be deciphered by priests alone. Next image. One of the centers of the Chavan culture was Chavan de Hunatar. This is understood to be the very center of the Chavan civilization. Here there is a complex of steeply walled platforms, honeycombed with stone-lined passages and surrounding a sunken plaza. It is unique amongst pre-Columbian temple groups. Next image. Now, the principal edifice is called the castle. It is faced with cut stone blocks and of varying widths, kind of all put together. The walls rose about 17 meters above a pedestal of large blocks. Inside the core are at least three irregular stories of stone-lined galleries, chambers, and ventilation shafts. Next image. And you can see, look at these blocks and how they're put together. The complex was laid out according to a preconceived plan. And the area, get this, is around 300,000 square feet. And this area was flattened, it was terraced, and it was placed according to the cardinal points of north, south, east, west. They have found inside a number of engraved obelisks, huge, and a network of cut rock tunnels, which had unusual quality of complex networks. Next image. And you can see here kind of what it looks like from above. Next image. Yeah, so these tunnels, they seem to go on endlessly. And around every corner, there is something looking at you. But there is something going on. And we're going to go there in a few seconds. Wait for it. So the Chavan culture is very fascinating for many reasons. Next image. And they have what's called a labyrinth. Yes, a labyrinth. Next image. And in fact, archaeologists have unearthed 20 complete marine shell trumpets. These are polished, they're painted, and they're etched with various esoteric symbols. The shells had a well-formed mouthpiece and with distinct V-shaped cuts. Next image. The cool part is this. If the shells were played inside the stone chamber in which they were found, the drone, the sound, would sound like it was coming from several different directions at once within this dimly lit labyrinth. It would have created a sense of confusion. In fact, it was tested by archaeologists and guests, and it does just that. There's this hum that emanates, that moves, that vibrates across these passages, and somehow you hear it on all sides, but also hear it within your head. And what made it even worse for those people at that time who are going through this labyrinth is that these sojourners were often under the influence of mind-altering drugs. So they definitely had a sense of confusion. And we're going to go into that in just a little bit. Next image. So, so one obelisk called the Bull or the Lance was originally in the center of this underground catacomb at Chavan. The top of it was about 4.5 meters. It actually projected through the ceiling, through the floor above. The seeker would traditionally would be led into a labyrinth of dark tunnels. And after they were under a whole bunch of hallucinogenic substances, specifically what's known as the San Pedro cactus, they would enter this labyrinth with a sense of disorientation. And then suddenly they're brought before this snarling deity, this obelisk, this right here, next image. And so you could see there it is there, which is like the axis of the world, so to speak. Um, this, of course, the Lanzan or the lance is presumed to have been the primary deity of the Chavan culture. The word, of course, itself means lance in Spanish, right? Because of the shape of the image. As represented, the lance and obelisk mark the axis mundi, moving between the underworld, earth, and the heavens above. Next image. And you can see it's quite impressive. Next image. Well, let's take a look at this here. So one of the most famous riddles of Chavan art um, is called next image. It's known as the Ramonde Stela. And you can see here, Chavan artists frequently use the technique of contour rivalry in their art forms. And this indigenous deity is considered as one of the finest examples of this technique. Contour rivalry, what does it mean? It means that the lines in an image can be read in multiple ways, depending on which way the object is being viewed. When the Raimonde Stela is viewed one way, the image depicts, as you see here, a fearsome deity holding two Huachamona cactuses. His eyes look upward towards his large, elaborate headdress of snakes. Next image. But when the image is flipped upside down, the same image can be seen differently. The headdress can be seen as a stacked row of smiling, fanged faces, while the deity's face has turned into the face of a smiling reptile. The deity's staffs also appear now to be rows of stacked faces. So what it is from one direction is something quite different from the other direction. Next image. And you can see kind of the detail work here. It is very clean, but it's very precisely done. There's so much artistry here. Next image. Yeah, and so you can see here, these are depictions of various deities. Now, we do know, again, that the Chavan culture um, used a lot of hallucinogens, specifically what is known as the San Pedro cactus, which has a psychoactive alkaloid mescaline, which is similar to like LSD. So it alters perception of time and gives a vivid visual patterns. So you can imagine what kinds of things that people would see. Next image. Okay, let's put that one down. We'll go to that one next. Thank you so much, Margie. I want to talk to you a little bit about this. Here we go. So there's other stuff about the Chavan I want to talk about. So what we know of the Chavan culture is that it is a shaman-based civilization. Shaman specifically appear to have much power and prestige. and they are in leadership. They all rule both as sacred and secular leaders. These ideas merging together. We know for a fact that psychotropic drugs were at the center of their rituals and religious activities. In fact, we see this even in the artwork, and we see processions of those uh, wearing various costumes, carrying the San Pedro cacti with much reverence. We have found much of the artwork that was produced that shows the influence, a very wild influence of psychotropic drugs. But we also have found paraphernalia for the grinding and ingesting of the psychotropic drugs, and as well as other substances. So we have found it all. Plus, in addition to that, we have found remnants of it itself that have survived over the thousands of years. So we do know that this society of shaman were uh, had these kinds of rituals at its center. The art itself, I didn't want to show it all. It's just too much. I have enough images as it is, but I do want to say it is just very beyond belief, layers of swirls and spirals and geometrical patterns that break into strange curves that are hard to describe, and scroll-like patterns and hybrids between humans and animals and plants and everything mixed together. We've even found scribbles that many scholars have ascribed to shaman that are madly placed in different ways and different configurations and are meant to be read for its deeper symbolism. This is a society that definitely needs a lot more investigation. This is a fascinating one. I'll just have to say this. Okay. And you thought this one was good. Wait for the next one. Here we go. The next civilization. Here we go. The Paracas. 1000 to 100 BCE. Next image. There it is. Okay, so the Paracas culture, it thrived between 1000 BCE to 100 BCE. It occupied much of the coastal area, and it was first occupied by those known as the Nazca, which we'll be looking into right now. And then secondly, by the Tiwanaku. And finally, the same territory will be occupied by the Inca. Yet much of the area occupied by the Paracas is very dry. It's very forbidding, especially the Paracas Peninsula. For about 200 million years ago, the seabed was upthrust due to tectonic activity. Because of this fact, sea salt covers the ground, and so not much grows in this area. Next image. The landscape is sparse, forbidden. As I said, almost seems like you're on another planet, and yet it is in complete contrast, as you can see here, to the blue ocean, right? The Paracas in general, they're a maritime people, and so were able to supplement what little they grew on the land with fish. And of course, they built, next image, they built mountain-like temples. Hold on to that thought. We're going to go there in a second. They built mountain-like temples, usually out of adobe, but as a people, they typically lived in houses constructed under the sand. Often villages were virtually invisible, so they lived underground. They were the people who first created the images on the ground of various animals and other creatures that could be only seen high up into the air. They were the ones who are famous for carving what is called the candelabra that you see here upon a hillside facing the ocean, being 600 feet tall, right? And this dates from around 200 BCE. Well, what is it? Some say it may have been a way-finding mechanism. for one is able to see this image far out into the ocean. So that's a possibility, right? While they call it a candelabra, it's obviously not a candelabra. Some have suggested is it a trident? Some say it was a cactus, going back to maybe it's a San Pedro cactus. But it is fascinating because a growing amount of scholars are saying, well, take a look at it. It's obviously gypsum weed, which, of course, we're back to this again, which is another hallucinogenic plant. So, would this be a gypsum weed image that people would see far out to sea to bring them in? I don't know. But when the Spanish conquistadors arrived, they saw this as a representation of the Holy Trinity, because of course they would, right? But there we go. Next image. Well, the Paracas were buried deep in these shaft tombs, oftentimes in an upright position. So we see this there, right? We know from these burial sites and their mummies that they often had naturally red hair. Yes, naturally red hair. And they practiced head binding and so had elongated skulls. Well, at least the nobility had elongated skulls. Next image. So what happens is back in 1928, I heard a certain Julio Tilio explored much of the north side of the Paracas Peninsula, excavating all about the central area of the large semicircular bay there. He discovered a village that stretched for around a mile with many subterranean houses, along with an extensive graveyard. Each tomb contained an entire family, all mummified in layers of highly stylized, woven, and colored cotton cloth. Most of their skulls were intentionally elongated. This because a young child's skull is pliant at birth. The process of elongating that skull is usually very successful by placing the board at the back of the skull and one in the front as well, both of which are then tied together by ropes. This process went on from between 6 months to 3 years until the desired elongation is achieved. Holes are readily invisible at the back of the skull to allow for veins to come out in order to feed the surrounding tissue. Next image. One odd discovery were skulls that did not quite fit the typical human conventions. When the skull is elongated, it changes the shape of the skull, but not the actual volume. In other words, you can change the skull's shape, but not its size. It is quite curious that Tillo discovered about 90 at the site called Cerro Colorado, adjacent to the main graveyard of Paracas, that actually had cranial volumes larger than average. In fact, many were 2.5 times larger than a conventional modern human skull, 40 of which you can see for yourself in the Paracas Museum, and you can see also here. Also, in addition to that, the thickness of the skull is not reduced, which it would be if it were stretched beyond the normal skull cavity capacity. Theoretically, the brain could be up to twice as large as a normal human brain. It probably isn't, but I'm just telling you, going through this, a few skulls had two rather than three cranial plates, which is interesting. We're going to see a few in a few seconds. In fact, let's keep going. A mummified head of one woman with elongated skull shows that her hair was cut short and that her hair, of course, was red. Next image. So here is some more examples of these skulls, not as elongated as the one we saw earlier. One skeleton had elongated head, but a child-shaped head, odd-shaped elongated eye sockets, but what looks like unusually large adult teeth. Let's go to that one. Next image. This is actually an image of a woman that they found. Next image. Oh, this is interesting. You can see right here. It says, of course, that the spinal column enters the bottom of the skull. It's very much further back than normal. This will be a genetic adaptation. You can see right here right here in this image, next image. Yeah, here's the child right here. So you can see its child-shaped head, odd-shaped elongated eye sockets with still an opening on top, you note that, but unusually large adult teeth, right? A femur and rib is preserved. At this point, no known medical explanations can suffice to explain this anomaly. Another skull, apparently confirmed to be a 2-year-old. Once again, the top of the skull is almost closed, has very large vertical shaped eye sockets, but very shallow. Where the optic nerve goes into the head is very different. The nostrils are barely defined. Again, these are all at the Paracas Museum. Of course, the supposition is that the heads were all extended artificially rather than part of a natural process. But a fetus has been discovered in the womb of a mummy of a pregnant woman that was found at the place called Huache near Tarma. What's interesting about this one is that the head is already becoming elongated. So there's questions about this. The woman is from the tribe of the Hunacas. Some have viewed these as perhaps a variant of not of human, not necessarily Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal, but an offshoot that did not survive. Of course, when it comes to binding heads, other groups of people follow the practice of binding heads. It's nothing new, including the Olmecs, the Mayans, the Macrocephali, of course, the Huns, the Alemanni, the Thurgians, the Virginians, the Egyptians, possibly during the Armana period, maybe. Those from the Congo of Africa, the island of Vanuatu in the South Pacific, in Melanesia, and of course, even in places like Sudan, Iraq, Syria, Russia, the island of Malta and Bolivia, we found archaeological evidence for this. So it's nothing new to elongate heads. What is new in this context is the fact that there's some other abnormalities that enter into this practice that perhaps already there seems to be this tendency for elongation, and they are then building upon that, extending that to a certain degree. Maybe it's the old Punnett square, what is dominant trait. Maybe those people who had elongated heads, because it does turn out to be, in a lot of cases, it is those who are seem to be of more higher class. Although that doesn't mean not all of them are higher class, but it seemed to be in tombs where there are more goods that are being offered. So not really. I mean, this area is very poor in general, but high class from that context. And so maybe it's connected to social elevation. And so people are wanting to be modified in order to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. I have a bone to pick with them. Oh, never mind. Bad joke. So moving on to the next image. So the oldest solar observatory in the Americas is also in evidence in Peru. It's located at Chanquilo. It dates from around 300 BCE. It was in use for about 300 years. Next image. 13 towers were specifically intended to keep track of the sun's movement throughout the year, with these large stone towers arranged in a line along a ridge. Next image. The Chanquilo towers vary from 7 to 20 feet or 2 to 6 meters high, but they are precisely spaced as the teeth of a comb, roughly 15 feet or 5 meters apart. They also found that one of the nearby buildings had an odd architectural feature. It had a 131-foot long or 40-meter long corridor running along the side that lacked any windows or doors into the main building. The best explanation for this architectural space is that it led people to an observation point to have, in order to have a full view of the towers, possibly. So you can see here. Throughout the year, next image, the points along the horizon where the sun rises and sets traces are in an arc. In Peru, the sun rises and sets farthest north on the longest day of the year, the winter solstice, and the farthest south on the shortest day, the summer solstice. Day and night are roughly equal in length during the obviously the autumn and vernal equinoxes. Only from the vantage point at the opening of the quarter do the towers precisely span the solar arc. It appears that the opening of this corridor was a ceremonial site where people made offerings, since researchers have actually found artifacts ritually buried there. Next image. There also appears to be another observation point on the opposite side of the ridge for watching the setting sun. To me, this is fascinating. It's old tech, but there you have it. Next image. Let's talk about the Nazca. The Nazca thrived between 200 BCE and 200 BCE and 800 CE. They're the most famous for their drawings that can only be understood from far above. The Nazca occupied the dry southern coast of Peru, specifically in the river valleys of the Rio Grande, the Nazca, along with the Inca Valley. The Nazca were more powerful and warlike than the previous Paracas, and they wiped them out. But they inherited their habit of drawing on the landscape. As many others in Peru, the Nazca bound the skulls of their young to elongate their shape. So far, 150 such skulls have been found amongst the Nazca burial sites. Next image. Oh, I want to, yeah. Well, I guess we're getting there. The Nazca Valley is a strip of level desert, about 37 miles long and a mile wide. Removing the dark purple granite pebbles that cover the floor and exposing the light yellow sand beneath made these enormous drawings possible. The drawings were first confirmed when commercial airlines began to fly over the Andes. In fact, they were clear enough to be viewed by astronauts above Skylab, orbiting 270 miles above the Earth. There are essentially two kinds of drawings at Nazca. Those that are zoomorphic in nature, and those that are anthropomorphic in nature. Although we do have a few examples of plants as well. So there you have that. These are amazing images. What you see right here is you see the image of a spider. Of course, I want you to know around the spider, you see a series of other lines. So there are many straight lines that are going from place to place. And we will talk about that soon. But I happen to like this particular spider image quite a bit. You can see here the next image. Okay. Okay. I want to talk about this one for a few moments. This is a knife welding killer whale. So somebody put together had this. This is archaeologists have designated this as the knife wielding killer whale. I'm not sure if that looks like a whale or not, but you have kind of a double fins there, the back fin. It's supposed to be aquatic. I could see that. I see the spiral it has for the eyes, but notice that it's holding a knife. The next one is the hummingbird. I like this one because it is such a great abstract one. Now remember, people cannot see this when they're walking on the ground. People are only able to see this from the sky, and there's no. It's hard. Many of these areas, there are no high points. There's no tall hills to be able to see this properly. Are there hills in the area? Yes, but they're too far back, and as a result, it still looks like it's flat. You may see a few lines, but you will not see these figures. You have to be directly above and high up to sea. Well, guess what? There's no Nazca that's ever going to see this the way it looks like, right? So they are guesstimating what a hummingbird looks like in this particular situation. But I think they did a pretty good job, although that's a very long beak. The next image is that of a condor. That's again, this is lovely, right? Well done for people planning this out without ever having to see it. Next image is a spiral. And you can see this, which kind of forms a little bit of labyrinth. I know some of it has been destroyed, but there you have that. Next image, I think it has a little sense of humor. This is a snake that's eating a person. Now, I'll get this. Some people say this is a snake eating a person, and it's a double-headed snake, and it's eating another person on the other side, but you guessed it. Some have said that it's a snake eating a person, and it's kind of pooping out something on the other side there. So perhaps a Nazca has a sense of humor, or perhaps it deals with a complex mythology, a story that we do not know as of yet. Next image. This is another snake. You can see the size down there, right? Just slithering about. Next image. This is understood as a cat on a hillside. So this one they obviously could see. So it looks like a little kid drew this cat. Next image. It's not as. This is a parrot. I think it's very apparent. Next image is another hummingbird. And the next image is possibly a second cat kind of laying there. And then, of course, the next one is an alpaca, perhaps, or a llama. And the next image is a spider monkey, right? It's interesting that this is a spider monkey from the Amazon jungle. The problem is there are no spider monkeys in this area. So somebody, unless they maybe through trade, they brought in a spider monkey. That's why there's a representation here. Many scholars believe this monkey with 9 fingers represent the 9 months of pregnancy. Some have said also that it represents the constellation Ursa Major, especially because of the way it's laid out. The spiders believe to represent the Orion constellation. So maybe, right? Next image. Of course, this is the fun part. This is the so-called astronaut that is, you can see this one everywhere. They'll say, hey, maybe, he has the big circular eyes. Maybe this is an astronaut. Maybe this is the alien. This is the one that you always see on Ancient Aliens all the time. Always show this. What I think is kind of interesting is they always show this one. You're going to have some fun today. They have found far more anthropomorphic formed images that you're going to see here, and you may be seeing these for the first time because they have within recent years using AI to go over these areas. They have detected images on the sand here that are absolutely difficult to be able to see with the naked eye. But take a look. Congratulations for those people who are wishing to see something truly unique in this lecture. You have arrived, and you'll be mystified. So here we go. Next image. There we go. Look at this one right here. So this is one they found. There seems to be some sort of radiance glowing from this form. That the feet are kind of turned inward. But look, that appears to me, I may be guessing, but I'm thinking that's a skull. Is this a god or a goddess? Is this represent the sun god? Is it receiving some form of sacrifice? Or is it just simply throwing the skull down? Who knows? But I think this is a great one, and you're not going to see this one that often in any show. And so I want to go to the next one. Let's have some fun. Look at this one. Perhaps this one is wearing a ritual mask. It seems to be a head on top of another head, some kind of creature. Are these arms coming from the top? Or are they hair extensions, or is this simply a mask? And what's going on down below, right? What is that? Um, you know, as much as people will say that, hey, maybe these are signs to aliens far above. I'm not saying they are aliens, but they certainly look pretty interesting. Next image, probably representing gods. Okay, I like this one. What do you guys think of this one here? This one kind of all reminds me of the Australian Aborigine images that we see sometimes. Um, but you can see here, once again, it's anthropomorphic. It does have the rays kind of coming from the head that we saw 2 images ago. What this is, we don't know. You can see how it's difficult to see with the naked eye. So this is what you would see on the left, and you can understand why this had not been detected until more recently with far more sophisticated equipment. The next image from here, and you can see the same with this one here, right? You can see that once again, there seems to be radiance. So there seems to be some kind of consistency in iconography. Again, perhaps the sun. I'm leaning towards that direction. Next image. This one again, you're going to see that you see this. Looks like a face. It looks like maybe some kind of hat, and there's some kind of extension. Maybe again, this is a play off the same we saw earlier. Maybe this is some kind of head that it is holding a offering, perhaps. But there you have it. You can see where I can see that would be a skull, possibly. Next image. You know, these are going to get weirder. How about this one? Okay, so this one, perhaps it is a goddess of some sort. It's hard to figure out exactly what is going on here. You got eyes, you got a mouth, you got these looks like antenna. You got what maybe feet below, or are those eyes that are between the legs? Who knows? Once again, you see the motif of it holding something. Is this a skull? What is this globular shaped? Who knows, right? Uh, Once again, I don't want to give fuel to ancient aliens, but this would be a fun one to show. I'll tell you what they think they are, so don't worry. I'm not going to leave you hanging. Next image. And the last but not least, I like calling this one ET because it has that kind of side to side little head. And they got 2 arms and they got 4 legs. These could be totems. These could be gods or goddesses or spirits. We just simply do not know. Next image. Nearby, that yeah. Oh, yeah, there's one more there too. Yeah. Yeah. Again, look at this. Again, the same motif. And the throwing of the head. It looks like it is throwing a head somewhere. Maybe again a sacrifice. Is that a sacrificial knife? Who knows? Next image. Okay, so this is in close proximity to the Nazca. These are nearby. This is the Palpa geoglyphs. I just want to show you that this kind of style continued on with a nearby culture, and you can see it here. Next image. So they have these kinds of glyphs, these kind of images. Again, interesting complexity. You also see this radiance there that looks like the sun coming out there. Again, they're carrying something. You can also see these antennae, whatever it is, maybe a headdress, maybe hair, we don't know. What you see to the right is just, well, pretty complicated, based on the same stylistic motif. Next image. And this is another one. I find that the Palpa geoglyphs are much more abstract. If one of the ones were as it is, this one certainly this one demonstrates that. It's is it a Picasso movie? It's a Pablo Picasso version right there. Next image. There's another version of it. Right? What do you guys think about this? I mean, it's a very interesting. Of course, I'm building up to give you an explanation of what these things are, but next image. Also, they have found, and I find this interesting, is they have found areas that are intentionally smooth. Um, it's interesting that We have found areas that are high up into the hills, up in the mountains, actually, that they have been flattened out for some strange reason, and we don't know exactly why. We don't, of course, if you watch Ancient Aliens, these are landing strips for the aliens to land. They're far too short. Next image. But we still don't know why they did it. We do not have an explanation for this. We have no reason to figure out why they would just, for some reason, cut the tops of a hill, flatten it. Was this a ritual space of some kind? What was it for? Again, ancient aliens will say, hey, they're making the way for spaceships to land. But what they are, we still don't know in this case. But we will have an explanation of what the other ones are in a few moments. Let's go to the next image. I want to make sure that we had enough to work with there. Oh, yeah, there's one more image. Yeah. This again is another pulp geoglyph. But let's talk about it. Let's next image. Okay, there we go. Perfect. So what happened here is, yeah, we have all these zoomorphic, anthropomorphic forms and even plants, right? Even though they were first identified from the air through commercial airlines, uh, when it comes to the images of animals or images of insects but the lines themselves people have seen before. The lines themselves, not the anthropomorphic or zoomorphic forms, but the lines themselves. The first person to really identify it was Pedro Cizo de Leon. He's the first European to see these lines, and he published his observations about them in 1553. He believed that they were trail markers. That's what he thought that they were. Moving right along, the next image. German astronomer and archaeologist, a certain Dr. Maria Reich. Also, she looked into the lines and she started to follow them. And she realized that these lines oftentimes connected with water sources. Water sources, of course. So there's a connection between these lines and water. Okay. So although the animal images, of course, are best known, there are about 800 straight lines that run for many kilometers around. It's been shown that all but one of these lines start from star-like radial points, often marked by a low mound, and every one of these points bordered rivers and tributaries. So if the lines were used for ceremonial walking, as it seems also very likely, some Nazca ceremonies were devoted to these precious sources of water. Water is also intimately connected with these people in general. For much of its length, the Nazca River runs underground where it reemerges. The Nazcas will build their ceremonial capital. So there seems to be a connection. Now, all about this region, connected to these lines, are intentionally drawn out labyrinths. So we have lines, but we also have labyrinths. Next image. So who is this? Okay, so this is Professor Clive Ruggles. He is still around. He's emeritus at the university now, but he's astronomer as well as an archaeologist. He's a good academic. He was at the University of Leicester. He is still emeritus there. He was the head of the archaeology, astronomy archaeology department, which, by the way, was the only one of its kind that we know. But he's an expert in many fields. And he talks about his encounter with these lines in the labyrinth. Next image. So he set out into the desert, set out along these lines, and he realizes something. He says as follows. He says, when I set out along the labyrinth from its center, next image. Here we go. The labyrinth. How's this? I didn't know its true nature. He continues, only gradually did I realize that there was a figure set out on a huge scale and still traceable, that it was clearly intended for walking. Invisible in its entirety to the naked eye, the only way of knowing its existence is to walk its 2.7 miles, 4.4 kilometers length through disorienting directional changes, which ended or began inside a spiral formation, which you see here. The labyrinth is completely hidden in the landscape, which is flat and virtually featureless. As you walk it, only the path stretching ahead of you is visible at any given point. In a similar way, if you map it from the air, its form makes no sense at all. But if you walk it, discovering it as you go, you have a set of experiences that in many respects would have been the same of anyone walking it in the past. The ancient Nazca peoples created the geoglyphs and used them by walking on the ground. Sharing some of these experiences by walking the lines ourselves is an important source of information that complements the hard scientific and archaeological evidence and can really aid our attempts to make anthropological sense out of it. Unquote. So what he is saying, is basically that even from the air, you may not be able to see all the lines. You actually have to walk the labyrinth, and then you'll see the subtle lines. Of course, you may have seen a little bit earlier on. Did you notice you saw like little dots between various forms of the will be anthropomorphic or zoomorphic? You see these little dots. These are lines that connect these together. So what will happen is that these labyrinths that you're seeing here are about experiences that you have to go there, be there to follow it. And so the Nazca would go along these ways and in a ritualistic sense. At the same time, it connected to water sources. Next image. I mean, what do you think, right? I know it's very hard to see, and it's supposed to be hard to see. But if you look closely, you'll realize there's lines everywhere. You see the spiral, you see some lines going further off, but actually there are other lines in between them as well. So these are labyrinths from there on out. They connect to the anthropomorphic or zoomorphic forms, and they go along these water sources. So it is this interesting, interactive, almost pilgrimage-like form of worship. Next image. And this is a little bit more of his research. After 1984, of course, he went there, but he returned again, and he made some further discoveries when it comes to the labyrinth. Next image. More interesting part is we find these other lines actually that follow these underground rivers. The Nazca cut deep spirals into the ground with a pathway spiraling down to a lower circular area to a water channel, typically around 30 feet down. Next image. These spirals were placed in sequences in very long lines. The area of the Nazca is incredibly dry, about an inch of rain a year. But these access ways enable easy water access, and the spiral openings create a cool area. These points also enable them to clear away any debris that happens to be in the channel or the underground river. Next image. And so you see these all along the way too. And of course, the spiral effect narrows the effect of possible evaporation as well. Pretty efficient, these people. And it does offer a cool place to hang out, except for next image, except for high noon, at which case you'll still bake. Interestingly enough, these spirals, these channels are still connected to these lines that move across. Next image. But you can see many of them, depending where you're at, many of them are quite deep. You just kind of walk around in a circular pattern. In and of itself, you can see that this could also be connected to possibly not just a functionality, but maybe even a ritual in turn. Next image. Yeah, you can see it right here. Yep. Nazca pottery, it's a penguin, but there are no penguins. I know, but it's still a penguin. So, yeah, penguins are indigenous to Antarctica, but apparently the Nazca heard about the penguins, and this is penguin pottery. Uh, please get it now. Next image. Another piece of pottery has has faces of 5 girls on it. So there you have that. Next image. I do find the Nazca pottery quite interesting. In some cases, you could see that some of the images do resemble the line images that we saw that were etched across the desert region there. Next image. I like this one because there's actually a little bit of depth here. Perhaps a god or perhaps decoration. We don't know. Next image. So we've done everything but see where they live. I mentioned the fact well, the center here is the city of Kuawachi. The Kuawachi site is huge. It extended about 370 acres. The most impressive monument is a 30 meter high pyramid that dominates the ancient city. It was built by modifying a natural high point of the land. As well as the pyramid, there were about 40 other structures, each sculpted from the landscape, enhanced by massive mud brick adobe walls. Extensive plazas and terraces once covered the land here nearly 2,000 years ago. Next image. You can see here the city is about 70 kilometers inland from the coast of Peru. As for what happened to the civilization, next image. Well, sometime between 300 to 350 CE, there were 2 natural disasters. There was a great, very powerful flood. We have found the evidence in all the excavations. And then an earthquake, which actually split the main temple into 2. So next image. What I think is interesting is archaeologists have unearthed about 63 pieces of Nazca fabric, but there is a puzzle. The fabrics come from different periods of Nazca history, and yet they were all kind of jumbled up together. Many parts are badly decomposed, of course, because due to the presence of organic matter and, yeah, exposure to humidity. These pieces of cloth were laid in a tomb. They have a special significance, not only as an example of textile art, but because the cloth has been sacrificed. It was placed with its needles and needle cases in this large tomb. The sacrifice of the fabrics provided important evidence about the kind of place that this city was in ancient times. The textiles are richly decorated with images from Nazca mythology. It doesn't appear to be for daily use. So there you have it. It looks as if the people of Cahuchi were rather special, that there was maybe an elite. The average Nazca citizens probably weren't wearing these kind of fabrics. 2,000 years ago, it would seem like an oasis. We have the river valleys with fields. We have very strong, healthy people. We could see here we have plenty of food to eat, no warfare. We know the Nazca were fairly short, long black hair, probably muscular. We know that they had good teeth. We see from their skeletons, they were very healthy. So no sense of trauma, no sense of warfare. And we move on to the next culture, the Moche. The Moche civilization, also known as the Mochica, dominate much of northern Peru between 100 to CE to 800 CE, and are specifically divided into various periods of time, an early, a middle, and a late. the Muche civilization thrived in the north of Peru at the same time as the Nazca civilization thrived in the south. Rather than being organized into a political state, each region was autonomous from one another, with similarities more in culture, art, and beliefs. The elite appeared to be in control of these independent cities. Next image. Here we go. As for the Moche religion, much of it was based upon the previous Chavan culture in the same area. We know that they worshipped a creator sky god by the name of Alpec, along with his son, and they worshipped the moon goddess Sai. Alpec is typically shown with ferocious fangs, uh, a jaguar headdress, and snake earrings. Next image. Alpec, while a sky god, was also believed to live in the high mountains, and they believed they needed to appease him through human sacrifice. And so both the blood of war prisoners and the Moche themselves were acceptable, with their vital fluids offered to him in ritual goblets. In many ways, the powerful sun was seen as a negative force in this hot and dry land. They believed that it needed to be appeased, and the only force that could possibly balance him out was the moon goddess. Next image. There he is again. Next image. Oh, there he is again. Okay, next image. All right, here we are, the moon goddess. You can see, interesting, we got the shape of the moon there on the cheeks there. This is Sai, the moon goddess. Did you know that Sai was actually the supreme deity of the Moche? She oversaw the agricultural cycles. She controlled both the seasons and storms, which could be very devastating at times. And while the sun could only be seen during the day, Sai, as the moon, could be seen in both night and day, and so had this power over that of her solar brother. Because of having a supreme female deity, as it turns out, women in Moche culture had more power. We're looking at an egalitarian society. As a mural from an intact tomb of a priestess known as La Senora illustrates, women could be fully involved in leadership roles within a religious system. In fact, would be the leaders oftentimes themselves. She was not only able to cool the fierceness of the light of the sun, but was able to control the oceans, the tides. And so the ocean was also under her dominion, even though it was assigned to a god by the name of Nai. She also controlled the flow of women's bodies. So you can see here, powerful deity. Next image. The Moche also worshiped the goddess sacrifice, depicted as half man, half jaguar, and holding a sacrificial knife, a tumi, in one hand, and oftentimes a severed head of a sacrificial victim on the other. He is often simply called the decapitator god because of this popular image of him holding a head, hence he's a decapitator. Yet with this said, he can also be seen, next image, as a gigantic spider figure ready to suck the lifeblood from his victims. That such scenes mirror real life events is supported by archaeological finds, such as those at the foot of the Huaca de Luna, where, well, skeletons of 40 men under 30 years of age show evidence that they were mutilated and thrown from the top of the pyramid. The bones of these skeletons display cut marks, limbs were ripped out of their sockets, and jawbones are missing from several skulls. Next image. Interestingly enough, the bodies lie above soft ground caused by the heavy El Nino rains, which suggests that sacrifices may have been offered to the Moche gods in order to alleviate this environmental disaster. Ceremonial goblets have also been discovered, which contain traces of human blood. The tombs have revealed costume and bejeweled individuals, almost exactly like the religious figurines depicted in the Moche murals. Next image. So that's a decapitator god. Now take a look at this. That's a pyramid. It is using the sack technique that we talked about. Yes, of course, it's melting away, but it is enormous, right? This is, of course, identified as the temple shrine of the sun. This was a monumental adobe brick hookah platform built between 100 BCE to 100 CE. The fact that something that is made out of adobe is still standing there and has not washed away, um, is baffles the mind. Of course, within those bags, you have the various stones. Archaeologists have estimated that the Huaca del Sol was composed of over 130 million adobe bags or bricks and was the largest pre-Columbian adobe structure built in the Americas. This is pretty impressive. Look at that. Next image. And another important structure was the Juca de la Luna, or the temple shrine of the moon. So you just saw the sun one. Now this is across the way. This is dedicated to, of course, the moon goddess, who is the most powerful of all. This is also believe it or not, this is a large adobe brick structure, and it preserves one of the best frescoes of this culture. Let's go and look at it. Next image. So these are the frescoes that we see connected to that of the temple dedicated to the moon. Let's take another closer look. These are enormous. There we go. And again, archaeologists have done a good job in preserving these finds, creating a nice glass enclosure so people can see it, and also try to control the temperature so it will be preserved. Next image, at least a little bit. But you can see here there is a certain standardization of forms, as you can see here. The moche, right? This is Alpec, as you can see right there. And next image. And you can see a few others, deities that we don't know. Very much stylized, but pretty amazing looking. Next image. Doesn't look very happy, right? Yeah. There we go. Different colors. Next image. Now we move on. Oh, yes. Wait a minute a second. So we have to also go talk about this. This is the Juca Posilania. This, of course, this is a giant, how do I say it? It's just like a giant center for games, ritual games. So again, pretty impressive. Next image. Yeah, pretty amazing, right? Just look at the stones. Again, look at the work that's been done here. Next image. Yeah, there we go. You can see all the piles there in construction. Next image. All right, we move on to the Wari, 500 to 1000 CE. The Wari flourished in the south central Andes about between 500 and 1000 CE. Now, there is an interesting myth connected to the Wari. The myth, in fact, there's a few myths in connection to the gods presiding at this place. There's one that's called Pacha Comac. Next image. Oh, of course, this is this is actually this is the oracle site that's dedicated to Pacha Comac. So again, pretty of the Wari culture. Now, Pacha Comac, there's various stories regarding him. Some accounts, for example, identify him as connected to Manco Copac's cowardly brother, while others say that he is connected to Viracocha. In other stories, he is the son of Inti, the sun god. But I want to talk about one story in general. First of all, uh, it appears that in most cases, he is understood as the maker of the earth. His name itself means he who sustains the universe. Kind of reminds me of the name Vishnu, he who preserves within Hinduism. I'll just kind of throw that one out for free. But there's one story that I want to pay attention to. The story that he made the first man and the first woman, but he forgot to give them food. That probably needs to be needed. I think it's interesting because I always reminded of Zeus, who made man, but he didn't forget to give them food, but he gave them only the ability to have raw meat, which is not too great either. But you'll see another connection in a little bit. So he forgot to give him food, and when the man died, the woman prayed over his head to his father by the name of Inti. And she prayed for him to make her the mother of all the people of the earth. Well, Pacha Comac was furious. And so what he did in his anger is, as they were born, one by one, he would kill them or try to kill them. This sounds familiar, right? Right? So to this mother of humanity, he is killing a child, each one born in succession. In some cases, can you believe he will actually eat them? Now, eventually, though, one of the sons born of his name is Wichama, arises and he beats up this deity, and there's this great struggle, and he throws him into the sea, and as a result, Pachacomac becomes the supreme god of fish. I just feel like I've heard this story before. I mean, this sounds like Greek mythology where Kronos swallows those born of Rhea, but Zeus, the son of Rhea, right, her son, right, much like Wichama, becomes the heir and defeats him, right? I mean, so you can see it's just maybe a strange coincidence, but there you have it. Next image. So these are images here of Pachacomac. Let's go to the next image. You can see that a little closer up there. Good. Next image. Okay. So these are hookah towers. These hookah towers, oftentimes connected to the Wari, were burials that dot the landscape. They are oftentimes rounded towers on the hills near Lake Titicaca that appeared to have something strange going on. Let's go to the next image. We're not sure what is happening, but many scientists have come to see that these towers. You can see that these towers taper wider rather than thinner as you move up. In fact, but some of them, you take a look at them, and it looks like there seems to be some kind of magnetic anomaly around it, and we're not exactly sure what it is. Next image. Of course, you can see how the stones are kind of very properly, very perfectly fitted together. They again, we have seen some strange ones, though. I don't have a picture of it here, but let's go to the next one as a demonstration, though. We see some strange ones here. Here you can see again these odd shaped stones, And for some reason, they still completely fit their great workmanship here. Next image. Okay, put that down for a second. I just want to say a few words. Uh, so what's happening here, which I think is interesting, is that we've seen that there seems to be around the lake some magnetic activity going on, and they seem to be connected close to these towers. We're not sure why. It's a mystery. There's people out there with dowsing rods and so forth, going about. And a lot of people from all different kinds of belief traditions are out there trying to explain it. One of the most interesting, though, however, is this that one of these structures that somehow the blocks seem to be thrown in one direction and other parts are thrown the other direction. It's almost like, I don't want to go too far on this. It's almost as if this tower exploded out and and there's rubble around it. I'm not going to go too far on this. I just want you to just think about this just a little bit. That there's something strange that's going on. Also, now the outer area of these are made out of basalt, but the interior was made out of andesite with clay in between, acting as insulation. So it's interesting how this works. Some of them um, uh, maybe there's some kind of physical properties we don't fully understand. It's just one of those mysteries. We'll just leave it at that. Next image. Okay. So we're now at we're now at the Sican civilization. The Sican culture thrived between 750 CE to 1375. The name meaning Temple of the Moon, although they are sometimes called by other names. The Sican claim they were founded by a mysterious being who helped create their civilization. Next image. This nail lamp arrived by sea via a balsa raft, according to the Spanish chronicler Miguel Cabello de Balboa, and founded a great city with the 12 sons of his oldest son, founding 12 more cities. Nalamp instructed the Sican people to build the pyramids and taught them a new religion. He then went by the seashore. He sprouted wings. He turned into a bird and flew into the heavens. Next image, the Sican male deity, often depicted with upturned eyes, a Tumi knife, and a trophy head, dominates much of their artwork. It is clear that this god is a monolithic figure, the one who has overseen all things in both the heavens and the earth. The Sican deity is often shown in association with the iconography of the moon and the ocean, the heavens and the earth. In fact, much iconography shows the Sican deity closely attached to water in general and may be associated with the extensive irrigation employed by these people. Also, the sun, next image, as paired with the moon, is prevalent. The Sican god was solely in charge of abundance, and while it would be presumptuous to assert that the Sican were monotheists, there is very little doubt that this deity was the primal one and had little competition. The Sican lords look just like the Sican deity in iconography, except that he is surrounded only by natural, not celestial surroundings. It appears also he is connected to the earth in certain ways. Next image. The Sican society was highly stratified. As burials have revealed, the poor buried in shallow graves along burial mounds, their bodies often flexed, while the wealthy were interred in deep shaft tombs within burial mounds, were typically buried in a seated position as if still alive. We What I find is interesting here is within the Lambayesque Valley in northern Peru, archaeologists, this is a big one, have discovered a culture obsessed by pyramids, building 250 in this valley alone. According to local stories, they believed that they had to build these pyramids or the world would come to an end. Next image. These pyramids were used both for religious rituals and burials. It would take 2,000 workers to make the mud bricks just to build one of these pyramids. Now this is fascinating. Each mud brick bore the mark of whatever factory made it. In fact, the valley was crammed with brick factories, each one constantly turning out bricks with their distinctive mark to keep these pyramids going. One factory used the footprint mark as their distinctive sign. Another used the spiral mark. Others include the T shape, the circle, the X, and so forth, with over 80 different marks discovered. And so the Sican people focused much of their resources in building such pyramids, with many toiling all their lives in their construction. So what's going on here? Many scholars have theories. Let's go through a few of them. It does look like there is some kind of competition of who can manufacture the bricks the fastest, and of course, hopefully well made, and the fastest, and in competition with the other ones. Is there some kind of boon that they receive, each of these factories, that the more bricks they contribute to these constructions, the more blessings they will have, or the more protections they will have from possible disasters? We do not know. But we do know that there seems to be some source or sense of pride with their images, so that they are pressed with their markings, their symbols. But again, we just simply don't know. The pyramids follow two different designs. First, there were T-shaped mounds, usually a low mound with a short central ramp, providing direct access to the top of the mound. It was used for public rituals, which we oftentimes see in Mesoamerica, while the second was a taller mound, characterized by steeper sides and having a zigzag ramp to reach the mound top, where a sacred enclosure was positioned and was used for private rituals, which reminds me of some Mesoamerica, but also the ziggurats that we see in Mesopotamia. The next image, the second capital of the Sican was focused at a place called the Sican Precinct. It was dominated by the pyramid Huca Lora, El Moscan, La Venatas, and others. But around 1020, we know from dendrology that there occurred a major drought that lasted for 30 years. The Sican people tried their best to appease their deity of abundance to assist them in their struggles. But apparently the drought only became worse. El Nino floods also inundated parts of their lands, as we know from around 1100 CE. Apparently the people blamed the nobility for this disaster. For between 1050 to 1100, they burned and abandoned the shrines built by them at the Baton Grande. Some surmise that the ancestral cult may have become too demanding, but these are only theories. A new capital for the Sican people was established at Tukumi. Next image. Both the Sican deity and the Sican lord disappear from art, revealing the blame for the earlier disaster probably fell to their traditional gods and his representative servant on earth. In this new capital covering 540 acres, they created 26 pyramids back to back, side by side. They were all solid structures without rooms inside, and their tops were cut off to create, as you see here, huge open spaces. It must be said that there is no evidence that they were built specifically to be tombs or temples. Great ramps provided access to the tops of these pyramids. Again, we don't know, right? They have also found the remains of a 35-year-old man, complete with jewelry and feathered headdress. who most likely lived there. It is believed that the 26 pyramids here supported 26 palaces for 26 rulers who were in charge of the valley and who were deemed as gods. So each one of them made their own special pyramid, and they sat on top and were worshipped as gods. Next image. Fascinating, right? Those of Peru believe the mountains were where the gods dwelled, and because of their placement, this is where the rain came from, and these were viewed as possessing protective powers. So to build a pyramid meant that one was building a mountain, and the hope was to be able to recreate or capture the divine power of abundance as well as protection. These lords hoped to capture this power for themselves, and just as the gods lived on top of the mountains, well, these lords lived on top of their pyramids, right? Yet these pyramids were built as if in a frenzy. And this was like an all-consuming activity, suggesting a fear of something they needed to be protected from. Of the three major cities that have pyramids, none of them existed in the same time, with each one following directly after the end of the previous one. The Pampa Grande was built first, and then a couple of hundred years later, the city was abandoned, and the Batan Grande was built, and then after another couple of hundred years, this city was abandoned, and then Tucumí was built. Just before the abandonment of all three cities, the tops of these were set on fire. The debris on top of the Tucumí pyramids was as thick as 2 meters deep. The fire, in fact, was so fierce, it even melted the stone. There's no evidence for an attacking army in connection to these fires, so they may have indeed been self-lit. Why would they burn their own pyramids? Fire is viewed as a purifier to cure against evil in ancient Peru. So these sites were viewed as evil, possibly, or they're maybe believed as being attacked by evil. We just simply don't know. Then, of course, we do know that a giant wall of water hit the first city by the name of Pampa Grande. We discovered this through the archaeological layers, while the nearby pyramid complex of Moche was destroyed by a wall of sand that covered the city. Isn't that interesting? The first one was covered by water, the second covered by sand. It almost seems mythological. The El Niños that severely hit this region caused both of these violent natural disasters. The El Niños were the supernatural force that kept the people here in constant state of fear. The rains would have washed away their crops. People would starve. Plagues would spread amongst them. And so the Sican deity and later the gods were viewed as angry with them. And by deduction, the lords of the pyramids were viewed possibly as having failed in their ability to protect them, and they were destroyed. There's evidence that some of this kind of happened amongst the Mayan further up. They turned against their own lords. Yet, as for Tucumí, there was not a natural disaster apparent in the archaeological record. So what happened there? Archaeologists discovered next image. I think I have a picture of this. I may not. Yeah. Have discovered a 2-laned walkway that went into the city, which had a series of right-angle turns that moved around the temple, which was the ritual heart of the city. This was the place where people went to make offerings to appease the gods. A series of offerings were actually found here. The stone at the center of the temple represented the mountain and the power of the gods. They believed by such offerings they could control the world, but towards the end, they began, we see from the archaeological evidence, they moved from these benign offerings to sacrificing people, with bones discovered by this temple, revealing decapitation, which is the traditional method of death. 119 bodies were discovered here, inclusive of women and children, the youngest one being 5, and were at the top of the 5 layers. Human sacrifice is typically conducted at the very worst of times. With forensics, there's no sign of trauma. The cut marks were smooth and not jagged, and the arms gently placed to the side, revealing that they did not struggle. They were given seeds that paralyzed the body, but left the person able to know what was happening to them, which is not too great. With these seeds discovered, by the way, outside of the temple. The chest was then sawed open, and the heart was then ripped out. In one of the structures were multiple images of mysterious Birdman, such glyphs often referring to gods or men who come from the sky. Of course, carvings of birdmen are everywhere about Peru and even Bolivia, but we still don't know what happened to them. Anyway, moving on to the next image. And you can see again what's left over of this civilization. All right. We are now Tiwanaku, 300 to 1000 CE. We are almost at the Inca, but this is the pre-Inca civilization. The Tiwanaku civilization was originally located in western Bolivia, but eventually spread to Peru and Chile. It thrived from 300 CE to 1000 CE. Andean scholars often assert that the civilization was a precursor to the Inca. Next image. The Tiwanaku tended to be more polytheistic, with one of their most important gods being Viracocha, who was both the creator of many worlds and the destroyer of them as well, being portrayed as a deity of constant action. Viracocha either emerged upon this earth from, next image, the cave of Paroktampu. Next image. There's, I guess that cave is not going to be shown. Okay, so we'll just go to the city itself in a little bit. We'll take that down. I'll just keep talking. Okay, so what happens is Viracocha either emerged upon this world from the cave of Paruku Tapu or Lake Titicaca when all was in darkness, and then brought about the luminaries, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Next, he wished to populate the land and so breathe life into large stones, creating the giants. They were the ones who made many of the great buildings with their towering strength. He breathed life into the smaller stones and created humans. He instructed the giants and humans not to fight, but both races did not listen to him. Later, Viracocha regretted making both of them. Also, the giants were not very intelligent and were, well, rather violent. So Viracocha sent a great flood, known as the Una Pachacuti, to drown them, with it raining for 60 days and 60 nights. He only preserved two humans, one Andasuya and the other Kandasuya. After the flood, Viracocha remade humans out of smaller rocks from the Great Flood. He first painted these stones with certain characteristics, wearing particular clothes and doing the specific activities he wanted them to do. He next took all of these stones and divided them into groups of nations and tribes. He also instilled in them different languages and songs. After this, Viracocha buried these stones, organized them in this manner all over the earth. Sometimes they were set in caves, other times in streams or lakes. After this, he instructed his two human servants to wake up these stones, for upon waking, they would become fully human. He sent Andasuyu to the east to do so, and Kandasuyu to the west, and so the world became filled with diverse peoples. Why I think is interesting about this particular story is it kind of reminds me of the repopulation of the earth that you hear in the stories connected to the Greeks and Romans, where you have Deucalion, right, who's the righteous person who survives the great flood with Thera, right? And what happens? What do they do? With Thera. What happens is that they're instructed by the oracle to throw the bones of their mother over their shoulder. And so they realized the bones of their mother are the rocks of the rocks of the earth, because Mother Earth. And so Deucalion, when he throws his rocks over his shoulder, that becomes men, and when Thera throws the rocks over her shoulder, they become women. This there's a similarity here. I'm not saying there's a connection, but it is still very interesting. There seemed to be something going on there. Then one day, Viracocha arrived at the Pacific Ocean and walked on the water away from them with a mission to spread agriculture and other civilized areas all over the world to his new people. He often took on the disguise of a beggar to do so. Viracocha also impressed people by his miracles. Yet whenever the Tiwanaku or the Inca needed him, he would appear to save the day. So again, we don't fully know. Local legends tell how those known as the Ursus, men of light, who once had lived in the Bolivian highlands, how they carried on the memory of the age of darkness, and also had the memory of the great flood, and then, of course, returned to the age of light. An image of Viracocha is carved at the Gateway of Sun, located at Kalasaya. So we do have some images there. So now let's get to the main city. And so now we get back to the images at hand. So the main city of Taiwanuke was quite extensive. Satellite images reveal an occupation area that extended 285,000. And of course, you have quite a few people. See here, I think I'm looking here, you have the Akipana. The Akipana was a cross-shaped pyramidal structure, 257 meters wide, 197 meters broad at its maximum. It has a second court at its center. The building was 7 levels, which is an important mystical number. The pyramid was covered in mud, and when archaeologists initially found it, they presumed it was an adobe structure until they began excavation work, revealing tightly fitted red sandstone blocks. Human sacrifice was unfortunately common in this culture. Next image. And you can see here, wow, it's pretty amazing, right? Next image. Of course, you have the gateway with the great god at the center there. Next image. Let's kind of move through these a little bit. This is the subterranean temple. It also has gates, 4 of them dedicated to the sun. These gates are made of andesite. It was quarried about 7 kilometers away, 70. The court's facing side of the best preserved gate of the sun has only the main doorway that's cut through. Next image. Let's take a look at that doorway. There we go. And it kind of looks like a Roman arch, does it not? Next image. Everything is perfectly lined up, almost in a mathematical sense. Next image, kind of moving through these a little faster. And you see these heads. It's very curious. They're not consistent. Some people have elongated skulls. Others have a moderate skull shapes. Some have thin noses. Others have larger, wider noses. They seem to be, some even have a beard. Next image. So they somehow maybe represent different kinds of gods or different kinds of peoples, or we're not sure. Maybe it does tie into the legend of the sowing of the seeds of different stones, becoming different races of humanity. But it's still, we don't know. Next image. Of course, we have, the famous monolith. Next image. We take a look at these stones, right? So these stones, they look. What is interesting about them is that they are perfectly smooth. These are polished gray andesite. This is a volcanic rock mixed with red sandstone blocks. There is no mortar between these stones. Next image. Um, and you can see them just kind of laying around everywhere. These the andesite. It's interesting that the stones appear to be of secondary usage from possibly somewhere else, and they are very smooth to the point of almost being machine quality in its smoothness. Uh, let's take a look. Next image. This is you can see just the quality here. Next image. I mean, look at this. You can see there's almost like the sense of reproduction here. They're all exactly the same size. It's like they're just pressed, right? Pressed out of a mold. Next image. They're kind of, H-shaped. And you can see these, how it's almost, again, just very clean cuts. Next image. And you can see here, with a leveler, it's perfectly smooth in every way. Next image. And so this has left people kind of scratching their head how amazing their abilities are. You also have the Fuentes Magna Bowl, which is very puzzling. That comes from the civilization because, well, it looks like there's writing on it. Next image. The problem is it looks like cuneiform. Next image. Next image. And you can see this at the very top. You have this image of a god holding things together with two snakes on either side. Okay, let's move on to the Inca. I'm going to keep this briefer, but I want to at least get to the Inca so we can understand the Inca. The name Inca is derived from the name of the ruling family from the Cusco Basin, and eventually became one of the same as the people of the Andes Valleys. The earliest king, next image, Manco Capac, who lived around 1200 CE, was believed to be divine, the son of the sun god Inti and the moon goddess Mamakila. Accordingly, Manco Capac was the Inca leader that first moved into the Cusco Valley, defeating the three small tribes living here, and established the city of Cusco in a marshy area located between two rivers, roughly where the main plaza of the city is today. Next image. It is believed that Inca believed that Manco Capac was sent to Earth along with his siblings by his father Inti. This is the sun god and his mother Kili, the moon goddess. In one version of the story, the Inca emerged from the cave of Parque Tombo, also known as the House of Production. I think this is where we will see the cave. Next image. Okay, well, this is actually an image here of the mother goddess Kila, so you can see what she looks like. Very good. Next image. All right, and so yeah, this refers to, of course, the idea of the house of production, the cave at Parque Tambo or Tambu, the house of production, located at Tampu Tahuki Hill. Next image. The Inca language. So basically, what happens here is you have this cave. This is an image of what is believed to be the sacred cave. Let's just keep on moving here. Okay. Okay, so what happens here is that let's talk about the rulers. Okay, so historically, in their mythology, iconography, and manner of architecture, the Inca appeared to have very direct links to the previous Tiwanaku civilization, right down to the worship of the same creator god, Viracocha. The prosperity of the Inca state was dependent upon the ruler. The Inca ruler would travel by a sedan chair through their kingdom, and all were to go out before him barefoot, holding gifts to him to show the respect. Typically, the Inca king was to act indifferent to their adoration and would never address his audience directly. He also wore each outfit only once, after which it was burned in the ceremony. It was seen here a king, Pachacuti Inca, and his son, Topa Inca, who truly inaugurated the aggressive imperialistic phase of the Incas, extending their civilization north to modern Ecuador and Colombia. and to the Mala River in the south. This king asserted Inca dominance. He also made sure that the Quechua language became the definitive language in the entire area. So you have the establishment, in a sense, of one language unity. He also implemented the policy known as Mitima. Mitima is a strategy that first made their very well organized bureaucracy dominate every aspect of life. So every aspect of life was dominated. Second, it imposed their religious system upon all those subjugated. And third, they relocated the newly conquered peoples so that their ties from their ancestral roots were broken, and so making them more malleable for adaptation to the Inca way of life. Again, that's very Assyrian. Their children were immediately indoctrinated in special schools to turn them into loyal followers of the Inca. As for the fate of the defeated chiefs, their skulls were converted into drinking vessels. Pretty brutal. So you have the Inca Empire. Basically, they are going to be in charge of every aspect of your life. Next image. For the Incas, right here, seen here, the Elu or clan was a central cohesive unit defining early Inca society. All relations with those outside of the clan were conducted by the Curacaas, which was the chief of the clan. The chief was in charge of the land, who he gave out to those of the clan with the expectation that they had to perform public duties in return. So the chief gave out the land, and the clan was expected to perform public duties in return for that land. Often this labor was intense. That created some resentment. Later, unfortunately, the Spanish would take advantage of this feeling of exploitation for their own advantage. Above the clans, the Alus with their leading Curacaas or chiefs, the Inca kings created a new Alus to supersede in authority the administration of the older ones. As a result, peasants had to work first for their immediate lords, got it? First for their immediate lords, and then second for the state above them. The Inca had no money, and therefore no taxes, but what they had instead was a system to distribute all their resources and allocated value instead to hours that they worked. So how many hours you worked for them, that counted as your way of payment. Daily life, next image, for the Inca was organized, even regimented, but all people were well cared for, whether rich or poor. To get an idea of how powerful the state became, the Inca kings made it mandatory for all people to be married. Now, if they could not find a mate on their own, the state sometimes actually selected a mate for them. Polygamy was common for Inca nobles, but farmers were required to be monogamous. As for the children, they had to undergo what are understood as intelligence tests. Those who scored high could become part of the nobility or were sent to school to be trained as administrators. Others were sent to trade schools based on their resulting scores. So you have a very high stress testing system, which reminds me of the Confucius kind of system of ancient China in the three-tiered conception that you have under the Han Dynasty and beyond. Girls went through a coming of age ceremony known as the combing of the hair. The girl was sent to Cusco to one of the temples to meet with a designated priestess. During this ritual, this priestess then combed the girl's hair. And as this priestess combed the girl's hair, she then chose her new name. Following this ritual, they could become either brides or princesses of the rulers. Only the most beautiful girls will be chosen for the later honors. Still, Inca society, while focusing on taking care of all people, was definitely stratified based upon wealth. The wealthy often lived quite well. The great nobles were exempt from doing any kind of work of any kind. While the Inca had no system of writing, as we understand it, they used a system of knotted and colored strings. We talked about this, known as the quick-coup, to keep records and tabulate, as well as to record aspects of their language. The Incas created an extensive road and highway system, next image, running for about 18,000 miles along these roads. They created an elaborate postal system with relay messengers established in various places to carry the messages through, often running across the rope bridges established over deep ravines. The messengers at these relay centers were also always in pairs so that one could sleep while the other was awake to await any important messages day or night. The Incas, we see here, many are still eating the same foods. The Incas made much of the land as possible for cultivation, growing corn, potatoes, beans, peppers, and other foods upon terraces, which moved up the mountain slopes along the valleys. The Incas also learned how to freeze dry these foods in order to preserve them for the winter time. So freeze drying. They were, of course, the ones who first fully cultivated the potato. While we did have the potato before, it was kind of fits and starts. It was still used, but it was incredibly small and sometimes bitter. But the potato, as we now know it, the Incas, in a sense, cultivated to perfection. Of course, the Inca utilized advanced farming techniques, including an efficient system of ditches and canals to irrigate their crops. Also, with a stable food supply and enough farmers to maintain it, the Incas could also focus upon the diversification of labor, having full-time industrial workers and bureaucrats. Their massive armies could always be fed at any time of the year. The next image, I think, maybe. We'll take that. Yeah, actually, we'll be there in a second. Inca pets were often their food too. So, depending on their whim. So a llama, alpaca, ducks, and guinea pigs were pets and food. So still today, cuy, which is grilled guinea pig, is a popular dish in Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, and Bolivia. By and large, the Inca were healthy, for there were no signs of deficiency or malnutrition, and their extent remains. You just have no freedom. The Inca considered, again, elongated skulls as beautiful, so they made it a custom to wrap bandages tightly around their children early on in life in order to limit its growth in one direction. Archaeology has revealed that these customs, of course, were long practiced beforehand. The Incas also had other modifications, especially stretching their earlobes. In fact, often their earlobes hung down to their shoulders. Because of this, the Spanish name for the Incas was basically was big ears. The Inca, next image. Here we go. Show the elongated earlobes here. Next image. Oh, yes. And of course, they had advanced forms of irrigation. You can see this here. Next image. And you can see the terracing. Of course, the terracing happened beforehand, but that utilizing to their best degree as much land as possible in order to feed their communities. Next image. Okay, here we go. Incas also were very successful in skull surgeries. In fact, of all the Inca skulls discovered, every sixth skull has a hole in it. We know that those operated upon survived the procedure, for scar tissue reveals this fact. And why were these surgeries so prevalent? Well, next image, in contrast to late medieval Europe at that time, where swords often wounded people, the basic way to attack someone else was via clubs and slingshots, creating head trauma that was possible to operate upon and cure. So the idea is to relieve that trauma. Next image. As far as the religion is concerned, they were polytheists. In particular, they worshiped the sun god Inti, and it was believed that the emperor of the Incas were direct descendants of the sun god. Inti was married to Mama Kuya, The moon goddess and their court consisted of rainbows, the Pleiades, Venus, and others. Next image. Uh, Here's the moon goddess right there. Unlike many other deities in Americas, Inti was considered benevolent for the most part. Inti was specifically instructed to give the arts of civilization as well as humanity. Uh, Next image. In a curious twist of local highland regions, during the rainy season, the sun was actually more intense, hotter, and brighter, while during the dry season, the sun was less intense and weaker. Because of this, the Inca attributed the sun's heat as causing the rain to come, watering the crops. Inti was then understood as the god of rain as well as the god of sun. Next image. Sometimes it was called a brother's sun. And so there you have that. So whenever the Inca conquered a new land and created a new province, a third of the land, as well as their herds, were dedicated to Inti. I'll say it again. Whenever the Inca conquered a new land and created a new province, a third of the land, as well as their herds, were to be dedicated to Inti. A temple of the sun was also established in every province, attended by both male and female priests. The female priests were often called Mama Kuna, selected from those known as the Aklo Kuna, meaning the chosen women. One of their duties was to weave special cloth. Another was to make what is called a chica for both festivals and sacrifices dedicated to Inti. As for his image, Inti is often shown as a golden disc with rays and a human face. The most important temple you're seeing here of Inti was located at Coricancha in Cusco. Here, the bodies of previous emperors and rulers were exhibited. Also set up in this temple were images of Inti in human form, with the middle of these figures hollowed out and filled with a mix of gold dust and ashes of the Inca king's hearts. That's right. So the middle of these figures are actually hollowed out. And so you have the hearts of the Inca kings. It's mixed with gold dust and it's placed there. Another image of it he found here depicted him with ear spools, but this is the site of it, of the place at the Sun Temple today. You could see right here that a church has been built directly on top. Next image. The most important festival dedicated to Inti celebrated the winter solstice of the Southern Hemisphere, which is around June 24th. It was known as Kopak Rami. Animal sacrifices were carried out. Music was played, horns, panpipes, and beating drums, and dancing was in full display. Along with colorful costumes, you had other kinds of festivities that are connected to it. Next image. Also, you had what's called the Inti Raymi, which took place during the winter solstice. It was also a ceremony that honored the sun god. This was because during winter, the sun was the furthest away from the earth, and due to the fear of a famine, the Inca would fast for days and plead for the sun to return. Next image. Here, also, they worship the moon goddess, as I mentioned, Mama Kuye, who is his wife, who took over his duties by night. This Mama Kuye was considered to be the wife's sister of Inti. Mainly women worshipped her, as she was believed to have ruled over menstrual cycles and marriage. A disc made of silver often represented her. In short, silver was considered to be Mama Kuye's tears that had fallen to earth. The Inca believed that the shadow on the moon was an animal attacking her, and in return, the Incas would throw weapons at the moon to try to make the dog go away. During lunar eclipses, the Inca believed Mama Kuya was being attacked again, possibly by a fox or a snake, and would also throw weapons into the sky to scare the serpent or the animals away, as well as making as much noise as possible. Next image. You also have Ilapa, This is another Inca deity that was held in high esteem. Just like they relied on Inti to make their crops grow, the Inca also relied on Ilpa, as he was believed to have controlled the rain, which is an essential part of making crops grow. He is depicted as a man in shining clothes, sometimes carrying a club and a stone. It was said that he kept the entire Milky Way in a jug and used it to create the rain. Next image, Mama Kocha was the sea and fish goddess, and legend has it that she was the wife of the creator, Viracocha. She was worshipped mainly by fishermen and sailors, as it is believed that she would make sure that there was always plenty of fish in the ocean. She was also believed to have prevented storms and calmed the seas. Next image. You also have Pakimama, who was a definitive earth mother and presider over time. As a fertility goddess, she oversaw both planting and harvesting. Typically, she was portrayed as a dragon, and she is the wife of Pakakamok, with her children as Inti, the sun god, and Kila, the moon goddess. Okay. While rituals in honor of her were practiced all year long, the month of August was especially important in observances to her, for this was the time just before the sowing season and happened to be the coldest month of the winter season. Remember, this is the southern hemisphere. Because of this, August was regarded as a tricky month, and much mischief was possible in nature. To protect themselves, livestock, and crops, families got together and performed cleansing rituals, burning plants and wood to scare away evil spirits. All of the months, August was known to have the most evil spirits, according to the Inca. They also drank a hot beverage known as mate that was believed to give them protection. The night before August 1st was the most important, where families cooked a meal all night long in honor of this goddess. Before the ritual meal, a plate of food is first offered to the goddess. Next, the host dug a hole into the ground. If the soil is rich, it means a good year, but if not, the year would not be as bountiful. All leftovers are also poured onto the ground as a prayer to Pachamama was recited. Next image. Another image of Pachamama. Next image. The Inca universe was divided into three parts. The first was the upper realm, called the Hanan Paca, where the gods of the sun, moon, stars, rainbow, and lightning resided. The word Hanan Paca means the future and the supra world. The condor represented this realm. The second are the lower realms, known as Pe, next image, Pe Ke Paca, all right, there, and Uka Paca, right, which is under the power of Pachamama, the Earth Mother. Here was also the place for ancestors and heroes of the Inca. The word Uka Paca means the past and the interior world. The snake represented the inner earth. And where do humans live? They live on the outer earth called the Ke Paca, an intermediary realm between the Hanan Paca and the Uka Paca. The word Ke Paca means the world of present and of here. What is interesting here is the connection to a temporal idea. So there you have it. Next image. Oh, they also have four elements or organizational principles of water, earth, sun, and moon. Next image. So the Inca believed in both a soul and life after death. In fact, they believed in two souls. When someone died, one soul returned to where it originated from, with this underworld varying in position depending upon one's life here. If they were virtuous, they would be in a better place. Of course, if one held a higher social, economic, or political status, they would automatically end up at the better place. The other part of the soul remained in the body and lived within, drumroll please, the preserved mummy. Okay, so the soul, and that kind of reminds me a little bit of the Egyptian aspect, just a little bit. There's some kind of tie-in with the body. right here, we're looking at sacred sites or things called hookahs. Were to be found all over the Inca Empire. In short, they are a product of early animism and are material objects or places believed to be filled with deities. Here's one here. Because of this, a huaca could be anything from a mountain, a boulder, a stream, or a tree. It could be a temple or a ritual object. Even pottery could carry the spirit of a deity. Next image. Here's a stone. That's holy. The typical way to communicate with a huaca is either through prayer or sacrifice. Sometimes the sacrifice included the humans, most commonly, unfortunately, a small child or a slave. To die as an offering, however, was considered an honor. Huacas were placed into wall niches or rectangular holes in homes too, with offerings brought to them. These offerings were believed to create balance both in nature and society. Next image. You have, of course, I don't know how these ended up here. That's fine. These still connect to the idea of a hookah. That works. That still works there. So you see these kinds of images once again connected as sacred places. Next image. Here we go. We also have what are called Inca stones. These are sacred stones. They're still made by the Inca today because they are so close to the ancient sacred stones of the Inca. Sometimes the makers are arrested. So these stones are believed today to ward against poverty. Images are cut into rocks, including animals, fish, snakes, and humans. Next image. Here's more of them there. Of course, you also have divination. I'm skipping sections here. Next image. We'll get to there very soon. So while the Inca did not practice cannibalism as a food source, it was practiced within religious rituals and either connected to sacrificial rites, regeneration, or even during warfare. The Inca believed if one consumed the person, they also received their power, their potency, even their abilities. Two forms of cannibalism were practiced. First, what is called exocannibalism, which was a form that involved eating the flesh of an enemy to prove one's power, to finalize the humiliation of the defeated foe, and to take revenge on their companions. The second form is cannibalism, where the dead person's bones would be ground into dust and mixed into a potion to be drunk by the family and other relatives to preserve within them the kinship groups and the essence of the dead. So one is used in a positive and one is used in a negative. One of the most important sacrificial ceremonies was called the Capacocha, and involved the sacrifice of children. Unfortunately, we're seeing something here. First of all, every year, children were selected from throughout the Inca Empire and were then trained and prepared for the ritual. When the time was right, they were sacrificed to either the sun god Inti or to Viracocha. If it happened to be a time of drought or famine or war, the gods were believed to be upset, and in this case, more children may be selected to appease them. Typically, the ceremony first took place at Cusco. Then the sacrifices continued along the sacred roads that linked the capital to the provinces. Here they would be either, unfortunately, clubbed to death, strangled with a cord, or having their throats slit. Next image. Before a burial would then take place. Another alternative action would be buried alive in a constructed tomb. These practices served purposes, first of all, to renew the bond between the Inca state and the people of the provinces, and to confirm the Inca's lordship. So once again, you would have these lines of sacrifices that go from Cusco all the way out to the provinces and is believed to connect them all. So there you have it. Next image. Okay, so the religious beliefs of the Incas actually encouraged imperial expansion, for it was tied up with the cult of the mummies, which was a fundamental part of Incan ancestor worship. As for the rulers, once they died, they were mummified, dressed up in the finest clothing, placed in the sacred chamber, and every now and then joined various processions during state ceremonies. Since their spirits were still tied to the preserved corpses, these ruler mummies were often asked for advice. They were, in a sense, living relics. But because these ruler mummies continued, listen up, continued to hold the property they had in life, the problem was that there was only so much land. And since the dead ruler mummies retained their lands, each new group of Incas lacked land, and so they had to acquire more for them to possess and cultivate. This means that to secure their lives as royalty, Inca rulers had to constantly fight their neighbors to acquire new lands for themselves. Meanwhile, you have these other lands, earlier lands that were owned by these mummies that were either ritualistically kept clear or just kind of overgrew. Great land wasted. As mentioned, the Inca were very much into venerating their ancestors, especially related to their mummy cult. During the month of the dead, mummified relatives of the royalty and the wealthy were removed from their crypts, redressed in new clothing, and then ritually fed. And in most cultures, this feeding was conducted by the burning of the food directly before these mummies. Drink was also offered to them. Next, the mummy, all freshened up, was paraded through the streets and even danced with before being returned to the tombs. When royal or noble mummies died, as I said, they retained their lands. It was there. And this caused a problem, right? This caused a problem because what do? This cult of the ancestors extended down to the common Inca. So once again, we talked about the fact that even the common Inca was one part of the soul has moved beyond. The other part of the soul is in the mummy. And so they in turn had a similar problem. What do? You can't, the deceased, of course, were able to give many kinds of blessings. You can't ignore or disrespect them because as a result, if you disrespect these mummies, your family could become sick or you could become delusional. The Inca were quite great builders. Let's go to the next image. They constructed, there's another image of a mummy. Next image. They constructed buildings sometimes as tall as 10 stories high, discovered in the river valleys of western Peru. Next image. They used giant stones to construct these buildings like Legos. Next image. Look at this, right? Next image. As we said, we're back to Cusco. The capital Inca Empire was Cusco, the name meaning navel, right? It's believed to be the navel of the earth by the Inca. According to their myths, two children of the sun, Manco Copac and Mama Oclahuca, founded Cusco, who were both brother and sister, husband and wife. Having been by the sun, they traveled Lake Titicaca with a golden wedge, which was destined to sink into the earth without any effort at their first place of residence, which was at Cusco. Cusco is the center of a network of spirit paths that radiate across the landscape. Cusco was said to have been originally designed in the shape of a jaguar, with the main plaza being the belly, the river Tulamayu forming its spine, the sundial as the eye, and the site known as Sacsayhuaman itself as the head. This would make Coricancha the genitalia. Although there were still some remains and foundation of Inca buildings, most were lost following the sacking by Pizarro in 1535. Today, there are only a few structures left to see, such as the Palace of the Incas, the Temple of the Sun, and the Temple of the Virgins of the Sun. Next image. So we move on to we're moving on to the valley area. This is Sacsayhuaman. I'm kind of skipping forward, which is good. First built uh, by the Quilque culture around 1100 CE, but soon became an Inca stronghold, of which fortifications overlook the city of Cusco. Of course, the Inca take credit for the founding story with an oral Inca declaration saying how Tupac Inca remembered that his father had called the city of Cusco the Lion City. He said that the tale was where the two rivers unite and so forth. And you have the repeat what I talked about beforehand. And so this realm was the realm of the head. Let's kind of move through this. You can see what the city looks like, kind of move through. Next image. Enormous stones. Some of these stones are 29 feet high. Next image, some are 360 tons. And they're all kind of formed in a very tight manner. Next image. Also, I want to bring up the fact, which is pretty cool, is that there are a series of tunnels. That's right. Tunnels that connect Cusco with this site. So these tunnels are vast. They are indeed a labyrinth. The only problem is this to this day, we don't know where they all go, and people go down there and they get lost and are never heard from again. Next image. So if you want to go and explore, make sure that you go with a guide. These tunnels connect to mystical lines or that irradiate from Cusco, and they're considered sacred for their own sake. Next image. And so we have, of course, you have another site called Sacsayhuaman, and you can see again how well formed it is. These great stones. Next image. This is the Temple of the Sun, if you're wondering. Yes, next image. We'll get to Lake Titicaca, which is kind of moved through this. Next image. So terrace fields and so forth. Next image. This is kind of interesting. This was discovered, and it looks like an image that represents a city. Next image. Once again, more ritual sites. Next image. So let's keep on going. Next image. Next image. Okay, yeah, this is yeah, keep going. Next image. Uh okay, so of course this is a very interesting place. It's connected, it's considered a mystical doorway that or a portal. It's called the Gate of the Gods. This giant doorway is carved into solid rock, but it doesn't go anywhere. The Spanish also called it the doorway of the devil. Of course, they would. In architecture, it resembles Anatolian rock cuts, that were dedicated to Qibli. According to Inca legend, the first priest, by the name of Aramu Muru, traveled through this doorway. The name itself, however, indicates more, for it is also found as Amoru, which means snake, while Muru means portal, so it means snake portal. So how he moved through this, which is essentially understood as a stargate, was through this golden sun disk that was decorated with many jewels that fell from the sky. Also, the priest returned to this gate using this golden disk, put it on a depression carved here. This door then supposedly opened, led him through, and he disappeared before many witnesses. Archaeologists have found a circular depression on the door. Of course, speculators say he was the last priest of the continent of Mu, according to various legends. Local lore, it can be a lot of fun. Next image. Yeah, you probably know this place. This is the last location. But we had to get to Machu Picchu, which was established around 1450 as an estate. The name Machu means ancient, while the word Piku means mountains, so it means simply ancient mountain, or actually, it could actually be translated as something else. It's either ancient mountain or Pico can be translated as penis. So it is ancient penis. Probably don't want to put that on your brochure. Yet there's disagreements. For other natives of the site will say the place name is Mati Chupi, which means chewing on the cacao leaf, which was done in gratitude by the young ones who took over the site from the older ones. This seems to imply that the Inca took over this place from someone else. The mountain itself was considered a sacred altar. Now, the Inca, especially known as the Tachatuk, were believed to establish the city because it was built around the late 1400s. Yet the stones do not match. For some walls were made out of red stones and are clearly Bronze Age cultures and technique, while others are not, using white granite containing much quartz crystal. So it's pretty hard. Bronze tools cannot even touch this material. Some theorize that the white granite with quartz stones connect to an earlier city that was here before the Inca one. Most engineers say that while the Inca could build most of Machu Picchu, they could not build around 5% of it, which appears to be an older core. Archaeologists typically say that the finer stones were used for more public and sacred buildings, and others were just more common. Next image. Well, the mountain city was abandoned at the time of the Spanish conquest. The Spaniards never found it, and it was only locally known until the American historian by the name of Hiram Bingham publicized the site in 1911. And so here, next image, was situated the famous Inti Hautana stone, which is called the hitching point of the sun, seen here, because it was believed to hold the sun in its place along its annual path in the sky. At midday on March 21st and on September 21st, during the equinoxes, the sun stands almost above the pillar, casting no shadow at all. This was one of the very few remaining stones sacred to the sun god Inti that has survived. It is a small flattened pyramid topped by a huge stone sundial carved from the natural rock that you see here. Next image. Then you have the Tower of the Sun, which was constructed around a natural rock feature. This structure was roughly shaped like a horseshoe. Next image, and it has a trapezoidal window in it, which appears to have been placed to permit observation of the midwinter solstice. Next image. The Temple of the Three Windows, you see here, so-called because it's three trapezoidal windows, contains a rectangular stone, which is suspected of having been used as a back site for solar observations. Next image. There's also the royal tomb, which is carved from solid granite, and the tomb lies directly below the Tower of the Sun. A throne of solid rock walls with carefully worked stone slabs, as you can see here. This fantastic construction must have served somebody important. There's also maze of rooms interconnecting the buildings throughout the city, often leading to secret chambers. So there you have that. Next image. Close out. Oh, one more thing. That's right. We also have, excuse me, what's called the Kellam Ruqua. This is an Inca construction and goes for several acres, but there is an image dedicated to Killa the Moon, and or also this is called the Stone of the Moon, and you can see that image right here. So this is the moon. Next image. All right. We are on 31, end of page 31. We have 32. That's it. So let's close it up. Eventually, we got to end the civilization. Eventually, the cult of the royal mummies caused the Inca Empire to become overextended. as you'd expect, here you have all these mummies, these royal mummies, inheriting this, having this property and retaining this property. And so they can't use it because it's under these dead mummy ownership. So they have to keep expanding their empire. So you basically are starting to get this hollow donut of wasteland in the middle of the Inca Empire of, hey, you can't cultivate this land. There's a royal mummy in charge of it. You can see this is a recipe for disaster. So they have to keep extending out. So what happens is as follows. The last stable king was Hunya Copac, 1493 to 1525, who's best described as a benevolent despot with unlimited power. In fact, it was only custom that kept his power in check, for his people believed he was a god in human form. And so even the privileged were allowed to see his divine visage. So he was approached by nobles on their knees, while commoners kept their head down in the dirt as he passed by them. Yet he was known for a sense of justice and was in the habit of showing mercy to his enemies. His rule was a prosperous one, with grain plentiful. Because the borders of his empire were fortified, he did not fear any invasion, not at all. But just in case, he had an army of 50,000 in his disposal. 50,000. When Hunya Copac died in 1525, next image, he was succeeded by his son, Huascar, being crowned with the traditional fringed headband at the capital, Cusco. One of the biggest problems facing him was this royal mummy cult. For by his day, the dead rulers controlled most of Peru's land and resources. The nobility managed estates of dead Inca rulers. They did, but they need land to cultivate. So Huascar needed this land. So he proposed buying the mummies of all dead Inca using profits from their estates for the living. According to Inca law, the successor of a dead Inca had to be the son of the ruler's principal wife, who had to be the ruler's full sister. Huascar was then a result of incestuous union, and he had a half-brother by the name of Atahualpa, who tried to persuade Huascar to split the kingdom with him. But Huascar rejected the claim. Because the nobles were angry about the mummy affair, especially as it would deprive them of the wealth and power they had enjoyed as custodians of the cult, they were unwilling to ignore Atahualpa's claim. What followed were 5 years of civil war. Next image. In the end, I guess I didn't have the image. Well, that's fine. In the end, Atahualpa was victorious, turning his brother's skull into a drinking vessel. But the Incas, after 5 years of fighting, were completely exhausted from the prolonged war. So what's going on here? This is one of the saddest stories, one of the sad stories of history. Here it is. It is a sad story. On May 13th, 1532, the very day Atahualpa won the battle against Huascar, Francisco Pizarro, landed in Peru. That's right. The very day, the exact day the battle was won, Francisco Pizarro landed in Peru. And they're exhausted. They just had 5 years of civil war. And as Atahualpa headed towards Cusco to be coronated as king of the Incas, Pizarro too headed for the very same destination. At the provincial town of Cuyamarca, Atahualpa was told the Spanish were following him. And so Atahualpa planned to lure the Spaniards into a trap. There was, after all, thousands of Inca troops around. So obviously there was nothing to fear. Now, Pizarro had invited Atahualpa to meet in the central plaza of Cuyamarca. Atahualpa, of course, accepted the invitation because this is just simply what you do with the bodyguard unarmed, so he would not give any offense. Pizarro knew that if he could get that Inca, he could get the kingdom of gold. You see, here's the problem. The Incas failed to understand how much of a threat the Spanish were to them. They were told that their swords were much like a woman's weaving batons, and so quite harmless. As for their guns, they saw them as fire sticks of the gods of thunder, and so attempted to pour beer down the barrels to appease them. Some believe the Spaniards from across the sea were connected to the creator god Viracocha, the one who gave them their civilization. Viracocha had sailed away. Perhaps he had become displeased and decided to come back. The Incas had no point of reference for which to understand the Spanish and were ill prepared for what was to come. So what happened is when the Spaniards shot their cannon in the town square of Cuyamarca, the Incas were absolutely terrified. At that moment, the Spaniards emerged out of their hiding places and proceeded to slaughter them. Next, they tore Atahualpa's fringed headband from his head and took him prisoner, stating that he was to be held for ransom, and the price for his freedom, of course, a room full of gold. A document was signed to agree on these terms, that they would receive a room full of gold, 17 by 22 by 9 feet was offered. Yet, once the ransom was received, the Spaniards trumped up some charges and had Atahualpa strangled. And so the powerful Inca Empire of millions of inhabitants fell to Francisco Pizarro with his band of 175 men and a small, ineffectual cannon, which is, of course, a very sad and diminishing note when it comes to the series of great civilizations. You can see me again. So we have exhaustively covered much of the history of the Andes. I'm hoping that this taste test, so to speak, of these different cultures, these different kingdoms, these different empires, these different sites may have whetted the appetite for you to want to see some more, to learn some more, and to decide which one of these happen to be your favorite. But what the interesting part is that what we learn is that these societies in the small area, it is just simply southern western section part of South America, that there is so much absolute diversity of these various places and states that are completely different from one another. So there's running chords of commonalities. But what I am just surprised at is how much you have in a way of different customs, different gods, and different ways of doing things. So this is my survey. It's hard to gather these thoughts and put them together in a coherent way because in many ways, it matches the jumble of different kinds of places that we have heard about. I do have a few favorites of mine. But the most important thing I want you to walk away with is, or sit away from it, is as follows. That, here it is, drum roll, please. This is not taught about. Did you guys know that in many elementary schools, in many places, in world civilization classes at universities, this whole topic that took this long uh, encompasses a chapter or less, or just simply a few paragraphs here and there, and that's it. So a large amount of people have no idea about the civilization that you heard about. So what I want you to take from this is that there needs to be more awareness for this rich civilization, that it needs to be taught, uh, and needs to be taught in a more complete manner and not in a superficial manner. Sometimes they just mention the Inca and they run on, but guess what? There's a lot of civilizations apart before it. The other part is, if you hadn't noticed, there's lots of unknowns. We don't know this, we don't know that. Uh, yes, there are archaeologists down there. Yes, they are interested, but the reality is not as interested as in other places around the globe. And so many of these mysteries that we have connected to these different civilizations, we would probably be able to figure out more about these cultures if there was more attention to it, even from the realm of academia, even from the ivory towers that aspire to understand so much the knowledge under the sun, but they somehow forget the knowledge under the Inca sun, under the Andean sun, in the southern hemisphere. And so my hope is that not only will it be taught more at various schools and universities, but also more research will be conducted. So we don't have to do this patchwork quilt of going back from civilization to civilization. I'll give you one last thought, and that is, here you have a civilization that goes back to 3500 BCE, and we ignore it and we just skip to Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. So we got to give the Western Hemisphere its due. With that, I say adieu and good night.